idiot in a propeller hat. Thank you guys for showing up.
The only one? Guy, back me up here.
Not.
I can't be the only one.
Yeah! Oh.
That's what
You're gonna start a movement. It's like in Joker when they wear the mask.
They're all gonna hold me up and commit crimes in my hat.
Oh yeah, you don't want that. You don't want like the next assassination attempt to be wearing your logo there.
Oh, and there she is. Perfect time.
Oh, do we have our special guest?
Yes, she is.
Are we live, by the way?
Yes, we're live.
Hello.
Oh, you booted her.
Oh no.
God damn.
Professional show.
Hey, what's up, Taylor?
I made it. Sorry for the delay. I was on a call.
No problem.
No worries. It happens.
Lots of important things happening. How are you?
Big things happening. Me trying to find a new apartment.
A word?
Yeah, what happened? Did you get doxxed?
No, my landlord. No, but it is funny. When they doxed me last time, they found where I lived, and then they all sort of collectively on this one thread decided it was too shitty for me to live in, and that couldn't be where I live.
No way.
Are you in the Southern California area?
I'm in LA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My landlord's getting divorced and is taking back my apartment, so I have to find a new spot. So.
Ooh, hey,
Is that
So
did
he
you do the interview with Libs of TikTok? Was that in Los Angeles?
Oh,
Yeah,
you doxed Libs of TikTok, didn't you?
We actually live not so far from each other, which is very funny because she doxed herself. She tweeted that picture of me on her doorstep that showed the exact street and the exact house that she lived on before my story was even up. But she met me at Aroma in Studio City, which is like one of my favorite spots. And everybody got very mad at me for bringing her there. Yeah. They were like, don't bring her back. And I was like, I'm sorry.
And for wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I've had some disagreements with you, but that I think is my first introduction to you, that interview that you did with her. And we watched it on stream, and it was just the funniest fucking thing.
When she showed me porn, she's...
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, she was like, I can't even remember the context. She was like something like this, and I was like, what?
Oh, it was about the books. Wasn't it about like gender?
Yes, something like that. My favorite thing about her is like just how bad she's fallen off. Like she tried to get a Daily Wire deal, apparently. She tried to get a PragerU deal, apparently. Like she's so bad on video that she like really has not been able to scale past Twitter, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, her whole shtick is calling out pedophiles, and then this whole Epstein thing happened, and she got phase one, and then now
she got the binder. Yep.
Said anything, and it's like, hey, what's going on? And like even some of the people on her squad are like, hey, well, all right, I don't think you're really doing what we thought you were doing here. It's pretty blatantly, transparently not.
Have you guys seen the picture of her, or I don't know if it's her, at the Capitol on January 6th?
Yes, of course.
Is that her?
That's her. She was a January 6er. Yes.
Oh.
Wait, is that
She's kind of an airhead, huh?
That's when she was tweeting under the account Biden's Houseplant, where she had a parody account where she pretended to be a houseplant that would belong to Joe Biden.
I think she should be the only January 6th perpetrator that should be pardoned because she doesn't have the mental capacity to know whether or not she should walk into the Capitol. Anyway, welcome to the stream, Taylor. Taylor Lorenz, journalist. Tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm a journalist. I cover technology, online culture. I wrote a book about it keeps falling down. It's back there somewhere, called Extremely Online, about the rise of the content creator industry. I cover, like technology and online media, and I've been doing it for about 15 years.
Awesome.
Taylor, have you explicitly come out and talked about like your politics? Like if you had to describe yourself, how would you describe yourself? What's your policy agenda? What do you focus on?
Well, I did intern for Mike Donnellan, which I thought was hilarious because when all that came out about Biden, I don't know if you guys read Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book, but I was like, oh God. So when I interned for him, like he was so old. We all used to be like, how is this man working in politics? And that was like 2007 or something. So I was a poli-sci major, and I thought I wanted to maybe even work in politics for a while, but I just love technology, and I kind of got into the tech media ecosystem, and I don't really identify strongly with either. I mean, obviously I'm not a Republican. They're fascists at this, maybe they've always been fascists, but like, but I disagree with, I want the Democrats to win, obviously, compared to the Republicans right now. But on like certain issues, I think that like, especially what I cover on tech, like there's just not a super strong like alignment on issues either way. There's so much kind of like weird back and forth that I don't really like over identify. I believe in human rights, and obviously I am against fascism. So I'm like broadly, I would call myself on the left.
Is it a bit bizarre for you this day and age to see, number one, the media environment change so differently from when you started as a journalist, where I think by most accounts, quote unquote, alt media now dwarfs traditional media. So I guess I'll start there. You have worked at what we would call like establishment media. What is it like seeing the growth of alternative media and its sort of political ramifications?
And before you answer, Taylor, can you double check you're using the right mic? It's like a little. It might be
does it sound bad? Hold on. Is it maybe it's not
you might
my
be using your
mic.
headphone mic.
Oh yeah, it's using my headphone mic. Hold on, wait. It's gonna sound better. Hold on. Does it?
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
much
better.
Yay! All right, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong thing. I love the rise of all. I mean, this is I love this. I love it. I think it's a really good thing for the media to be. I started as a blogger, very much of like the millennial blogger generation, and I think so many of us, pretty much everyone in my like class of millennial bloggers, ended up in traditional media because that was really the only pathway. You couldn't make a living independently back then the same way that you can now. But I think it's really good to have like a robust and diverse media ecosystem. And I don't think you always get that diversity of perspectives in the mainstream media. So I think it's great to like have mainstream media exist. I don't want to see like all investigative journalism go away, but I do like that things are kind of that we see a lot more like sort of niche media, things like Migrant Insider, a great Substack by this phenomenal journalist who's the only Capitol Hill reporter that files every single day on issues affecting immigration. He's broken some major stories, like that type of niche beat and niche audience. Like there wasn't really a business model for it in the olden days. So I'm pretty for it. It's obviously led to a lot of problems though, and I think that like our sort of regulatory structure, especially around like political advertisements and stuff, is not caught up to the media environment that we have now.
I think the promise of the internet in the late 2000s and that era was about sort of like decentralizing information. And so I remember feeling very optimistic about the young generation because, our parents and our grandparents and society just kind of broadly was able to, like frankly lie to us when we were kids. I'm pretty old. I'm like 43. And,
You're
we
43?
didn't. Yeah, well, turning 43 pretty soon.
Okay, but that's millennial. Like you're in the like they were lying about the Iraq war to us all the time. They lied about a lot.
But the new media, I think, I don't think I quite anticipated the problems that come with new media because I feel like the perverse sort of profit incentives for legacy media, that's a big problem, right? I mean, it does impact coverage, but there's a different problem of audience capture now with creators. And these creators, like we'll say like Tim Pool or whatever, they don't have any editors that are fact checking them. They have no incentive to correct themselves if they make mistakes. Yes. In fact, they have perverse incentives to lie to their audience if they think it's going to get them more views. And so I don't know if that's like better or worse than the old model where you only had legacy media.
Well, I would say that's not all content creators, right? I would say it's like, I think it's also even just if you look politically, like that's a much bigger problem on the right, even than the left. Not to say that there isn't a huge amount of people on the left that also do that. I think it's across the board. But I think that part of the way that Trump got into power was leveraging people that also, I'm sorry, it's so bright. For some reason, the sun is coming in like right now. I feel like it looks like I'm being raptured.
It actually does that at the same time every day.
It's going to like move soon. Anyway, I think that's not all independent media, but it is certainly, a portion of independent media. And I think those people are bad actors. And that's why I constantly write stories, when they do unethical things, they put out disinformation that they refuse to correct. They, take dubious deals that they don't disclose, et cetera. Like I care a lot about transparency. And I think I totally agree with you, what you just said of like, I don't know if you said this, but you said they don't have editors, they don't have fact checkers. I want them to.
You did say that, yeah.
I want them to adopt those principles and sort of abide by more journalistic principles if they're going to call themselves journalists. Some of them just straight up don't care about calling themselves journalists.
That's one thing I really struggle with, is this line between pundit and journalist. Sorry, Ira, you can go, but like I struggle sometimes with like my own what am I doing and what the role is. I view that there is a thing as a pundit who maybe has less responsibilities, and journalists, capital J journalists, are different than pundits, but sometimes it can get really blurry, and it kind of confuses me about what standards, if any, apply to people who operate in the space.
I think it's really incumbent on individual people to be transparent too, and say, like, here are my lines. Like, I've talked to some political creators that are like, listen, I'm overtly a political creator. I don't care. So I'm fine, taking XYZ money or doing this or going out and campaigning with specific candidates or whatever, because that's how I view myself. And they're transparent with the audience. I think where you get into things that bother me, at least, it's like when you pretend to be a journalist or you put independent journalist in your bio and then you're turning around and not abiding by basic journalistic principles. So I wish that audiences would ask harder questions of these people that they follow. A lot of times the audience doesn't even care. They'll just eat the slop, and I'm like, no, do you know what this person's background is? Do you know where they're getting their talking points? Do you know what is their funding structure like? What are their, and they're not very transparent about that. So
yeah, I was like, oh wait, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to ask, as somebody who follows the new media space much more closely than most people, how do you know who to trust when it comes to political opinions and who's grifting and who's telling the truth? What do you look for?
Also, Guy, I have to say, I love your background. I used to have that in my dorm room. I had like all these like old political signs, and I love this. I think it's such a good, like, I've never seen it. It works very well as like a YouTube background. But anyway, you said, how do people know who to trust?
Yeah, like how do you
know
who to trust? Because you follow this space more closely than most people. So I'm curious.
I mean, I also think different people are trustworthy on different issues. You know what I mean? And I trust people to like give a thoughtful commentary on one thing and not the other. And I think a lot of times too, the problem is like we see people who are experts in one thing. This is why like I didn't go to Cuba when I was asked or whatever. I'm like, people don't need to hear me talking about like foreign policy and this way. Like, I'm a tech reporter. You know what I mean? So like I think there's a lot of like influencers, content creators feel a lot of pressure to kind of be experts on everything. And I think that it's a bad thing for audiences to view them that way. It's kind of unhealthy. But I guess I figure out who to trust because I look at their like principles. I look at how transparent they are. I also look at how willing they are to like have conversations. Like if they do fuck up or if they do get something wrong, like how willing is that person are they going to issue a correction? For instance, if they got something factually wrong, are they going to be transparent about their funding? Are they like operating in good faith and trying to get things right? And also, what are they an expert in? Are they pretending to be an expert in everything? Nobody really is, so it's kind of like, what is your niche and how willing are you to stray from that niche and start popping off about things that you don't know anything about?
Okay.
All right. Well, so structure of the show, I think we were going to get into some current events as we normally do. And then, of course, I don't know if you know this, but you did an article about this thing called Chorus, and I think someone wants to talk about it at some point.
Oh,
but
my
first,
God.
Events, you were at the Correspondents dinner. Do you want to talk about your experience?
Oh, yeah.
there?
Yeah,
How was that?
I was at the like Politico CBS News pre-party. So the way that it works is like there's the main actual dinner in the ballroom, and then outside the ballroom around it in the Hilton, there's like all these like media parties, Washington Post, Bloomberg, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, all like pretty much every media company has like a party that's in the Hilton, that's in one of the rooms kind of like adjacent, like by the ballroom. So like when people are like, there's no security to walk in, it's because most of the journalists there are just going to these like parties around, and they're not going to sit through the actual Correspondents dinner, especially this year with Trump. Some of them do, they go as part of work, but like most people that are at the Hilton that night are actually there for like these surrounding events, like the Puck whatever, they were doing something too. So I was there for that. So I was in the lobby shortly before that guy came, was trying to do the shooting. I was not in the ballroom.
Conveniently, you were missing from the room when everything went down.
I left actually to go to this party, this Substack party, which was at the Renwick, which was directly across from the White House. So as soon as I got there, the shooting had happened and we got locked because it's directly across the White House. The Secret Service locked us in the Renwick. And so we were all locked in the Renwick with Substack people, basically.
With Michael Tracy about to beat you up.
Yes. That was when the Michael Tracy, Jim Acosta.
Oh, were you there for that?
Yes. I did see that drama. So yeah, there was a lot of drama that night, but yeah, it was crazy and weird and stuff. I mean, the White House Correspondents' Dinner is like just a dumb thing that they do every year to, I think it's been so like devalued by now that it's like nobody takes it that seriously except like inside DC people maybe, but
I mean, without it, we wouldn't have Trump, right? If Obama hadn't made those comments, maybe. So maybe is the predictor of our next president. We should see what happened at this last one.
Shut it down. Yeah.
Speaking of parties that you've been to, Taylor, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was there a party for the quote unquote Cruel Kids Table magazine cover? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
where it's like young.
Yeah, so that was actually, that party was the TikTok party. So TikTok hosted this huge party the night before the election. Of course, this is when TikTok was still under threat of being banned. They actually were banned for like less than 24 hours that day. And so obviously you saw, the CEO of TikTok up with Trump during the inauguration. I was in DC covering the inauguration, specifically TikTok's lobbying. So I was at that TikTok party. Yeah.
Well, because I want to connect that to something that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, namely that Erica Kirk left in tears. And she is, this is the connection. She's also head of Turning Point USA. And there's this big conversation about, the future of the young right-wing party or the young conservative movement and what that's going to look like. And a lot of criticism in the aftermath of the White House Correspondents' assassination attempt. Erica Kirk has this video where she looks like Sonya Blade. She's wearing this it just doesn't seem like she's fitting with this like young conservative mold. You who've encountered right-wingers in the wild, both institutional right-wingers and young right-wingers, what's your take on the Erica Kirk of it all and whether or not you see any kind of direction for the future right-wing party?
Well, there is a pathway for them. I've seen so many generations because I also covered Trump. I covered the first Trump election. I was at the Hilton the night of the 2016 election when Trump came out. I went to it was the Clinton people were at the Javits Center, and then the Hilton is where Trump had his party. And that night that Trump won in 2016, there were a few reporters, but it was mostly internet people. It was like forum admins, people that ran like big subreddits, like content creators, just weird like internet pilled people, and who also had the deplorable also the night before the 2016 inauguration, or January 2017. When Mike Cernovich got up and was like, we won, like we used the internet basically, or we used Twitter, to like put Trump in the White House. So I think that there's multiple generations of like right-wing young internet pilled people. And to me, Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk represented the old version of them. Like it is very like she's out of touch and out of date. And I think the young ones resonate more with like Nick Fuentes and those types. She's too establishment. I think that like the appeal of Trump is that he's anti-establishment. And I think that you're just seeing this fracturing in the party. That's why Ben Shapiro's YouTube is like plummeting. It's like he's part of that generation of that like establishment mindset.
So
I think, oh, go ahead, Guy.
Do you think Turning Point USA will be around in 5 years?
Yeah, because they're backed by billionaires. So they're just going to astroturf it to death. It's never going to go away.
I think there's some truth to what you're talking about. I think maybe Trump is now starting to become the establishment for a lot of people. He's heading into his, the halfway point of his second term here. But it's also just the case that I think when your party wins and you do political coverage and, your party's in charge, you're playing defense the whole time. It's rough. Like the party out of power, like the benefit of being out of power is you can just play full offense the whole time. And
but not Candace and Tucker. Nick,
true,
like they've all done, like, I think that there are people, and that's why people like Jessica Reed Krause, Libs of TikTok, like a lot of even like DC Drano, et cetera, like those people, they align themselves way too heavily with Trump. And you're right, they were doing defense. And I think they didn't position themselves distanced enough where they're getting the downstream effects of it. And I think like Candace Tucker, all of those, that whole group, which includes, by the way, a lot of Instagrammers, a lot of like younger ones have made that separation.
Yeah. Well, I think when you have enormous audiences the size of like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, you're kind of insulated. I think you have more latitude to.
But she tripled her audience since Charlie's death, right? She's tripled her audience, and I think she's been able to grow that audience by going against MAGA, Trump or whatever.
Yeah.
It's easier to get mad at the people in charge, which is why they were so flourishing when they were campaigning to say, look, they're fucking it all up, and then suddenly you give them the reins, and you get these Dan Bongino, Kash Patel types, podcasters complaining about the establishment and these high-level roles, and they're like, "Oh shit, I can't do this." So,
but really, what is the it factor, though? I wonder, because you describe Erica Kirk as establishment, and I guess in terms of vibes, I'd agree with you. But like, what is that? So what? That special sauce that gives someone like Candace Owens the ability to grow by 3 times, Tucker Carlson some insulation? Is it the ability to speak freely? Is it more mainstream appeal? What is it?
I don't think they speak freely, but I think they pretend like they speak freely, and they pretend like they're willing to challenge Trump, frankly, in very specific ways. You'll note that, Tucker Carlson, for all he wants to talk about the genocide and all blah, 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 blah. Okay, he put Trump in office and he still meaningfully doesn't denounce MAGA in any sort of he's not becoming a liberal, right? So I think I think that they're able to seem really kind of like truth-telling and like independent and anti-establishment in a way that's just able to get them views. But I don't think fundamentally they've broken very much. I mean, they're still hanging out in the same right-wing circles,
What do you make of the discourse about left-wing populists and right-wing populists sort of joining teams here? Obviously, Cenk has been a big proponent of this, but it's become more relevant, I think, in this last week because I think Tucker Carlson is trying to set up a conversation with Graham Plattner. I think he said he's considering having that conversation.
I saw that.
That kicked off like a whole round of discourse. Do you have an opinion one way or the other on that situation?
Yeah, Graham should do it. Go. Why not? Why wouldn't he? Go on there.
Speaking of Hutch, are we voting blue no matter who?
100% for Graham Plattner.
I'm voting skull tattoo in this.
Did you guys not like Graham Plattner? I thought you guys were Democrats. Wait, sorry, hold on. Are you guys pro or anti Graham Plattner?
I was skeptical of his judgment, and I was thinking of leaning more towards a Mills. But now
we don't like the tattoo.
Clear that he's probably going to win, and she dropped out. And it's like, all right, but blue no matter who. That's our motto, right?
I'm a pro Democratic Party Senate majority. I think would be the answer to that question. So I support him and think you should vote for him if you live in Maine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially considering Tucker has a place in Maine and there are people that, Tucker has a massive audience. He's gotten a huge amount of credibility with certain groups, sort of swing voters, I would say, like from his stances on foreign policy and stuff. I don't see why Graham shouldn't go on there. I think you should show up anywhere, by the way. My feeling is like, I'm not necessarily going to let everyone on my platform, but like I've gone on InfoWars multiple times to talk about tech policy. Like, I think it's good to go into different spaces and have those discussions, especially if Tucker's going to give him his platform. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't he take him up on that?
I've heard that kind of distinction between like letting someone into your space versus going somewhere else. Talk more about that. Why is it different? And why do you have a principled distinction in who you platform versus where you go?
Yeah. And I think it also depends on like platform. I just think this whole idea of like platforming is very silly and stupid. Like just the notion of it. Like, I guess I platformed Libs of TikTok by like destroying her in an interview or whatever. Sure. It's like, are you going to have like is it going to be, or if you bring that person who you fundamentally disagree with into your space, are you going to laud them or are you going to make them look stupid to your audience or like whatever? It's like there are different ways to quote unquote platform someone. I think that if anybody wants to give me some of their audience, no matter where they are politically, I'll pretty much show up. I mean, the difference would be if I was sort of maybe legitimizing some like random small person that like doesn't have an audience. Like, I think there can be a power dynamic there of like, okay, I'm a larger person than you, so therefore I'm like lending some maybe credibility. But I just think like,
should get off.
Yeah, I know it's really dangerous. But I'm thinking kind of like people got a lot of anger when, oh my God, I don't know if these are the right people. The Nelk boys, did they interview Benjamin Netanyahu or something?
Yes, they did, which was I wanted
what
to
were your
die.
thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, obviously Netanyahu's just using the Nelk boys to do PR. So I mean, the Nelk boys are just going to say yes to anything. And John Shahidi is like the architect of Trump's influencer strategy, who's their manager. So of course that's going to happen. But you'll note that Netanyahu is not going on like drop site news podcasts. Like he's not going to show up for a critical interview, but yeah, he'll go do propaganda with like a bunch of drunk 26-year-olds or whatever. I mean, I think that was ultimately an unproductive interview. And then they were trying to do like, PR cleanup where they were like calling up Sneeko and Hassan being like,
and Myron Gaines.
Did we fuck up? Yeah. Oh, right. Myron. I mean, that should tell you everything about their knowledge of foreign policy. We should not listen to the Nelk boys on foreign policy. I can't believe I have to say that in 2026.
All right. Well, moving on to one of the topics of today, which is the Supreme Court case where we have gutted voting rights. I don't know, Taylor, have you seen this and had a take on it yet? Or no?
No, but that sounds terrible.
Well, I have a feeling you have a take on part of it. There was a lot of dark money that poured into that referendum. Yeah. I have a feeling. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, this is why we need transparency in the system. This is bad. Yeah, I mean, I'm like very critical of all this stuff.
How much? I didn't know anything about this dark money part of the.
What are do you know the groups that have been funding?
Oh, I don't know the exact groups, but I know the majority of money that was spent, like $90 million or whatever, was from dark money groups.
Yeah,
spent on a what, guy? What do you mean?
On ads promoting, yes or no on the referendum. This is to change the congressional districts in Virginia.
Oh, I was talking about the Supreme Court decision to allow all of these like congressional redistricting to happen, or to, I guess the ultimate piece, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially is saying it is now much harder to challenge potentially racial gerrymandering in any of these places based on their decision.
Okay, my bad. I thought we were just going to talk about the changes in general.
You're too up to date, guy. I'm 7 days behind.
Of the podcast.
Right. That's fine.
Yeah. I think there's a good conversation to have about the broader gerrymandering fight because that really does unlock a shit ton of funding because people know that's really important. To Guy's point, there was an incredible amount of money that was spent on the Virginia redistricting measure, and it was a closer than comfortable election, I think, for a lot of Democrats. But on the Supreme Court specifically, this is a decision which I think it's pretty political. I know people are going to shrug when they hear me say that because I've always thought that the Supreme Court has been heavily partisan in favor of the Republicans. But this in particular, it's a gutting of one of the most storied laws in our history. Coming off of segregation, the Voting Rights Act, and for all intents and purposes, Section 2 of that act, which prevents certain kinds of vote dilution, that was passed specifically to try to encompass even unintentional vote dilution of racial minorities, has been essentially gutted by Alito in this court in an opinion that really I think is not convincing. And it would be a little bit much on this podcast to get into the weeds about exactly why I feel it's unconvincing, but just a lot of sleight of hand from Alito, pretending that he's just adjusting and updating precedent when he's like wholly overturning it, and pretending that any version of this law that was intended, it was to be essentially a worthless law that can never be enforced. And you're going to see a lot of litigation in the coming weeks to try to stop elections that are already underway.
Well, Pisco, I'm curious, and this isn't like an attack, it's just like the natural question that comes up.
Yeah.
Everyone's calling the Supreme Court super partisan, right? And they also just passed this thing allowing God, I can't pronounce it, the birth control pill to be tele-mailed to people, which is a progressive decision. Is this, them playing cover, but also being partisan? Is it like, oh, well, sometimes they compromise? Like, how do we square that circle? Like, where does that fit into the narrative?
Yeah, so I don't think that all of the Supreme Court decisions can be thought of as totally explained by partisan blinders. I don't think that that's the case. And there are some situations where, there's just no fair reading of precedent that would allow a certain decision to stand. So, for example, even in the tariff decision, I mean, there you kind of have business interests aligned with legal reasoning that really can support these emergency tariffs of unlimited duration and unlimited amount and quantity. And so, in other words, I don't view the only metric and component the Supreme Court considers to be what benefits a particular party. I just think it's a very strong bias. And here you have an example of a building chipping away of the Voting Rights Act over the course of a decade plus, which seems ideologically rooted, where different issues that don't necessarily connect with each other, such as the Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act and certain aspects of constitutional racial gerrymandering, is being used, I think, to infect the court's precedent, which is otherwise clear that this kind of law is allowed under Section 2 of the 15th Amendment. So in my opinion, like, you can't just say it's all explained by partisan bias, but you can look at the pattern here and the track record, and whenever there's an issue of enormous political consequence like gerrymandering is, I think the court has put enough on its scale. And you can tell by how convincing the opinion is also. And if you read the majority opinion, it's not very convincing.
Well, Taylor, try to rope you into this. Do you think we should expand the Supreme Court?
Oh, God. I have no idea. I did do my high school. You had to do like a big project, like a big research project, and I did it on the like FDR court packing plan from like the 30s or whatever that was. So I should like have a stronger opinion now, but I genuinely don't.
You don't remember your high school project. God.
Well, like I kind of remember like the arguments for it back then, and I remember this was like a topic of conversation a few years ago, but I feel like it kind of got dropped. Are you guys? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's pretty chicken shit that the Democrats, I'm going to be honest, this is one of my gripes that Josiah and I share, don't fully embrace court reform now. I think it's necessary for all the other kind of regulation that Democrats want to pass is to do something and unpack the courts from when they were packed by Mitch McConnell and friends during that whole Merrick Garland situation. And so I'm frustrated that more Democrats aren't embracing it.
I think we're going to have our weekly fight now. Pisco, are you ready?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Okay, let's gear up. I think like the job of advocating for packing the Supreme Court, which I would say I'm in favor of now because I just don't know what the better options are. It just feels like there's no good options really. And this is like the least bad option. But I think it's up to the commentators and people outside of the actual like political apparatus to make that case. Because to me, it's like if it were up to me, if I was like advising presidential candidates, I would say probably don't run on it and don't like signal in advance that you're going to do it. But if we get a trifecta in 2028, day one, push the Senate to scrap the filibuster and just start doing big things like ban partisan gerrymandering, do court reforms, etc. But you understand that, like, would you acknowledge that there's like some risk that might not be necessary with the like heads of the party actually running on that policy?
Do I acknowledge that there's some risk? Yes, I acknowledge there's some risk. Yes, I do.
Okay. Maybe it's just maybe the only difference of opinion is just how much risk there is versus.
That was not a fight.
No, like I acknowledge there's some risk. I think the question is like how important, how vital, how critical is a certain thing to your agenda. And court reform is critical to our agenda if we want to get anything of consequence passed in this century, in the next 4 or 5 years, and being able to do it quickly. And so given that it's essential, right, just like getting rid of the filibuster is essential, we just need to start acclimating our constituencies to create the kind of arguments and structures in favor of this and make it an issue. Just like, by the way, Trump has made an issue out of the ballroom. That's something else that's a current event, is out of this whole chaos of the assassination attempt. Everyone's just talking about the ballroom. You have Ashley Sinclair, who, by the way, at some point we should invite to the podcast, talking about how they
should have her.
Oh, do you have the 100%. Connect? Pisco's been asking for it.
Yeah,
I think we need to. But like you see how they have these conversations behind the scenes, and maybe there's a nice dovetail into the chorus conversation at some point about what messaging to do, and they're all picking ballroom, and like, so there is a way, I think, to shift opinion, and maybe part of that is being like strategic about who takes the lead here. And okay, fine, I'm not going to make the most vulnerable representatives and senators be the ones to carry the flag here, but I think there needs to be some sort. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's about them. I would say it's more about like the candidate. So whoever the candidate's going to be, if it's AOC or Kamala or Newsom or whoever, I do think there's strategic value in hiding your power level on this particular issue, because What I don't want to do is to juice an electorate that's pretty depressed. Like the MAGA electorate right now is really depressed. Like we're seeing the turnout on the Democratic side versus the Republican side. It's really bleak for the Republican Party right now. And as soon as you start running on, like the presidential nominee starts running on, we're going to get rid of the filibuster and then pack the court. I mean, that would be probably the most transformational thing that the government has done since like the 60s and the 70s with LBJ's like war on poverty and Medicare and all that stuff. And so that's my concern. Guy, what do you have? You look like
well, I just don't think that people want to hear our leaders talking about getting rid of the filibuster right now. They want them focused on cost, like affordability and stuff like that. So I think that conversation will become much more relevant when Alito and Thomas bail out before the end of the year and Trump gets to nominate Emile Beauvais and Aileen Cannon to be on the Supreme Court. You can get a lot more people saying, okay, fuck this noise, but they've already packed the court. So I think it's just returning fire at this point if we do. But You're right, Hutch, you said it. Like first you got to get rid of the filibuster. That's going to be a big task alone.
I don't know if it is, man. I actually think there's a very decent chance they get rid of the filibuster in the next trifecta. I really do. Yeah, I do. I think
not so sure about that.
I don't know, man. Obama was on Brian Tyler Cohen's podcast just 2 weeks ago talking about how basically it needs to be done. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if more pressure kind of mounts. I don't think it's going to be a topic that comes up a lot during this like midterm cycle, but as soon as we get into the next presidential cycle, which I think is going to begin like right after the midterms. I think they're going to start announcing in like December. I do think like that conversation needs to be had. And I think there's more kind of leeway to talk about the filibuster, but I just hedge a little bit on committing to packing the court. I mean, what do you think, Soy Pill?
I kind of understand the risk of, hey, this could hurt our chances and invigorate them to say, look, they're about to become draconian and take everything away from you. Everything you ever feared is going to come true. But the thing is, they were going to do that anyway. And I'm not so sure that making them understand what even the filibuster is, like imagine explaining that to a MAGA voter. I don't think they'd want to vote for it because I don't think they'd get it. I don't think most people get it. And I don't think the MAGA voters are suddenly going to become this like even more cultish and loyal base because they're like, oh my God, like I now understand like civics and I'm going to like take my understanding of that and vote extra hard for the Republican Party. But I'm not
convinced we shouldn't kill the filibuster if Dems take the Senate in the next year. Like if Dems take the Senate, why don't we just take the sting out of it and do it while Trump's in office?
I agree with that for sure.
And just hit him with a bunch of legislation that is actually popular. Who knows? Maybe do something good for the country. I mean, doubtful he'll pass it, but I mean, these kind of conversations I think are in the weeds anyway. In a way that like you guys are mentioning, people don't really care about as much as cost of living.
That wasn't a fight. So maybe
it wasn't really.
We'll dovetail into the chorus thing.
Well,
Taylor, I don't know if you know
before
this.
we get started,
yeah?
Did you guys see that there is a job opening? So if you guys are big chorus defenders here, they're hiring.
Oh shit!
I applied after your article and they rejected me. So I don't know.
To be in the program?
Really?
That's fucked up.
That's not fair. That's fucked up.
Yeah, I was like more dark money. Give me
But you would you disclose it?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I tweeted it out before it even happened.
So where's the problem? You know, like
we'll get into it. I mean, but just so you know, I've been trying to get Hutch to come to dinner every day, and I say, Hutch, where are you? What's going on, honey? Like the food's ready. It's getting cold, and he's just staring at this big wall of Post-its and pictures. He's been writing a manifesto. So he's going to lead his this course discussion with you, just so you know.
Yeah. What's going on? I mean, their second class finished, so they're done. I don't know that they've started. I think they're recruiting now for the next class, which is why they're hiring this partnerships person.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to focus on like the current sort of chorus stuff. I did want to talk about your article a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure. Let's do it. Why not, guys? I'll talk about it till the cows come home. It's so crazy to me that when I was in DC, I ran into someone from 1630, and she was like, "It's never gonna die," and I was like, "It's never gonna die. It's never gonna die."
Well, listen, I think it would help the discussion. Well, first of all, I want to say like, I think your overall focus on transparency when it comes to money and politics, that is necessary journalism that needs to happen. And in fact, despite the issues that I have with your article, and we can dive into that, I did learn a lot about like dark money structures because your article made me look into it. And so I do think that there's a really vital role for journalists to be discussing this issue. And so, I appreciate you bringing attention to that. And I genuinely mean that. But I want to ask you just a few questions before we get into some other things here. What do you think is the crux of, like, if you had to describe the crux of your reporting in this Wired article, like what would you go with there? How would you describe it? It's like the main points.
Yeah, I think the main point is basically like what I want people to walk away with, kind of what you just said, which is that like this massive, notorious dark money group is funding this program that influencers took part in that claimed to be journalists. And that these influencers basically were taking undisclosed political money while promoting political messaging. For instance, I think that let me just give an example. So I think that consumers and viewers, readers, whatever, right, like news consumers deserve the right to know if the person that they're receiving information from is, one, taking political money, and two, taking part in like messaging sessions, like getting, sort of information given to them by certain political interests or whatever, right? I think that they should know that. Journalists, for instance, like myself, anybody that basically works in mainstream media, you cannot take part in any dark money political funding. That would be so unethical. It would violate every single ethics. You could never do that and work in mainstream media. But I think the problem with influencers is that, listen, and I have friends in that program, but like, some of them, it's like, whatever, they're political influencers. They don't feel like they have to disclose it. I think they should disclose it. But there are a lot of other people in those programs that are calling themselves journalists. And a lot of them actually wanted to disclose it. That's how that article came to be, is that 7 people in the program came together, 7 of them, and were like, hey, we wanted to disclose it. We want to post about it. We're being told that we're not allowed to, and we'll be kicked out of the program if we actually publicly disclose it. We think this is really wrong, and we want to blow the whistle on it. We've recorded all these Zoom calls. Here's screen recordings of all these internal text messages. Here's, internal documents. Here's all of the contracts. Here's all the contract negotiations. Here's all the internal guidance on what we're supposed to respond to, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, great. Okay, well, let me reach out to Chorus and 1630 and talk to them about this. And obviously they didn't want to talk on the record, but I hope that people from that article demand more from the content creators and demand that these content creators, are more transparent about funding. And most importantly, because I don't even think it should all be on the content creators' fault. As I said, so many content creators did want to disclose, and they were told they'd be kicked out of the program if they did. The people that run these programs, Courier Newsroom. I don't know if do you guys know Tara McGowan, Courier? That's
no, I heard
crazy.
you talk about them before, but
yes, they're
familiar.
Like the other big. You guys should. That's like your type of. That's like the other big lib like thing that funds all the Democrat stuff. Like,
oh, you're not a lib, Taylor?
Listen. I love the libs. I'm not hating on anybody, but
hang on a second. You like free speech? You don't like the libs?
I do. No. I actually really like a lot of people I like a lot of people in Chorus, and I like a lot of people in all these programs. But
and I have black friends, Taylor.
What'd you say?
I'm not a racist. I have black friends.
No, but I'm saying like that program is run transparently, right? There's a lot of other funding programs that are run transparency. Even Crooked Media, you could consider sort of a form of this, although it's quite different. It's a media company. But
so overall, though, you're putting the emphasis on disclosure. You think the crux of your article was about disclosure?
I think it's about disclosure, and also unpacking what sort of, basically, if you sign a contract that says, if I take part in chorus-based events and that puts restrictions on my content, that should be disclosed.
We'll get to that. Because that's worth diving into. But to your point on the disclosure, okay, so the section in your article where you dealt with the specific provision in the contract that barred the creators from disclosing that they were a part of a fund, like a dark money fund.
The program. They talked that they were part of the funding program.
Right.
Yeah.
That, I think, was probably the strongest part of your article, because I think that does raise ethical concerns that are worth exploring and discussing and hashing out and kind of collectively deciding like what should the ethics be. But we'll get to some of that.
Well, they came out after. I mean, these content creators, several of them came out after the story came out and said, "We're proud to take dark money and we don't owe you anything." So I think that's the energy that some of these content creators have. And I think that's a huge disservice. I think if they start to play that game, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. Like that's not you have the disadvantage in that system. The right has significantly more dark money than the left will ever have.
Well, let me
ask, was it in writing that they couldn't disclose? I don't know.
Yeah, it's in their contract. Yeah, it was in their contract. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay. I got to hit one thing at a time here. I feel like you hit on like 5 things that I want to unpack, but
okay.
I want to keep my train of thought here. So the second question that I have for you is I think it was in your conversation with Pisco, where you were speaking about the importance of journalists and editors disclosing their partisan beliefs in their reporting. Was that your conversation with Pisco or on Doomscroll?
No. Well, I don't think that you have to do that. I say that, for instance, one reason that I really like to be independent is because I like to make my views clear on where I stand on certain issues. I think that makes me a more accountable reporter, because when I'm open and I disclose, hey, I'm coming to this issue with this perspective. Mm-hmm. Am I wrong? Like, I mean, I go to sources with this all the time where I'm like, well, this is my view, you know?
Well, now Taylor, in the interest of transparency, earlier, I know we're being friendly here, but you do hate Democrats and libs, right? Like, I'm pretty sure you hate Democrats
they drive
and libs.
Me
I'm
crazy.
pretty sure I've heard you say
to
this.
Win. I hate them because they keep losing. I want them to win. I want them to be Republicans.
Hmm.
But I mean, obviously, obviously, I mean, I don't want the Republicans to win. They're especially not Donald Trump. He's a fascist.
But on this point though, like I think you did.
But I do. My point is like, if you are a journalist, especially if you're a public independent journalist, I think it's to your benefit and to the public's benefit for you to be transparent. And I think one reason people don't like mainstream media is that mainstream media will put out content that clearly has a political slant. You know, certain writers at The Atlantic, for instance, right, that like are going to skew a certain way, but they can't come out and say it. And to me, that's a flaw in our media ecosystem. I think that you should be transparent.
Would it be up to the journalists to disclose that kind of slant in the reporting itself?
No, because it depends on your slant. Like, what are you talking about? Like, for instance, I cover identity verification laws. I'm very critical of ID verification laws. I'm very anti-surveillance. When I talk to the guy at the Age Verification Association, the trade group, I say, listen, I'm a huge critic of these laws. Convince me why I'm wrong. The goal of an article, like a journalistic article, is to be factual and truthful, and to get people to understand, you know, sort of the truth of a situation. Right. It's not necessarily to share your opinion on something. Some articles do contain more opinion, but most sort of like investigative work, or especially something like this, it doesn't have my opinion in it. Also, because like 15 people worked on this article, and my original draft was so like, you know, it goes through like so much sort of editing and review, and so many people work on it, that it's just like the end product is mostly a result of like, what did the legal, you know, how do we need to sort of reword this so that it's legally factual and, you know, stand up to some like defamation lawsuit, because that's what they kept threatening.
Well, my sense of this particular reporting is that I think you do have a slant. I think you do. I think your opinion is
my slant is probably, I mean, as you can read from all my Wired reporting, it's against dark money, and it is a transparency.
Well, no,
slant.
That's not the slant that I'm talking about. I think you have an anti-establishment slant. I think you've discussed. Of
course, it's anti-establishment.
Well, hang on, real quick. You've described yourself as on the left, or I think you even hinted that you were identified with the label of leftist. I think in your conversation
on certain issues.
When you read the article, it's like really clear that you have villains in the story and you have heroes in the story, and you have kind of a larger narrative that I think goes beyond disclosure,
but like 15
right?
people were right. But like, my name is on the top. But as you know, with an investigation like this, especially one that went to the top, that like 15 people worked on this story. So
well, I understand that. But like, for example, so you assigned the label centrist to Olivia Juliana,
which is how she self-identified.
No, she self-identifies as a progressive, right?
No, from what I found from my original reporting back from the New York Times, back when I had interviewed her years ago, she was identifying as a centrist Democrat in Texas. That was her whole thing. In
2024?
Maybe it was whenever I spoke to her, which was quite a while ago. But just to be clear, she never took issue with that. She never reached out for a correction on that at all. We would have been happy to, like, if she had.
I mean, nonetheless, that is an opinion, right? Subjective. It's a very subjective label.
No, it was how she. Well, first of all, I think we can correctly identify people's political sort of affiliations. For instance, if correct me if I'm wrong on Olivia Juliana, and Olivia Juliana works for Chorus, but she her whole thing was that she was a Democrat in Texas, right? Who had done a lot of work with like reproductive justice.
Yeah, right. So she focuses on abortion, LGBTQ plus, climate, voting rights. When I look at these sort of policy priorities, that does not strike me as when I think of a centrist, I think of Joe Manchin. I think of like Jared Polis in Nebraska. Right?
If Olivia wants to reach out, and we honestly, the thing that you're bringing up mostly comes up on the right, because for instance, when I've covered Nick Fuentes, he will say, well, I'm not a white nationalist, or Chuck Johnson, who I cover all the time, or not so much anymore, actually, he's less relevant, but he would constantly say, well, I'm not a Holocaust denier. Right. And so I think at some point you do have to take a look at certain people's, beliefs and what they've expressed and try to categorize.
How would you define centrist? How would you define centrist?
A Democrat? A Democrat that's probably middle of the road, like a middle of the road Democrat, like a Democrat that could operate in a red state probably, and a blue state maybe equal, like, somebody that's sort
very
of appeals
broad
to both.
Though. That's a very, very broad.
Well, it's kind of like the centrism itself, like as I think about it and sit here, there's a kind of identified more Schumer-oriented Democrat, more moderate Democrat associated with a centrist label.
Well,
and it is kind of vague, right? It's a kind of vague
but
term.
Also, like, I wouldn't say that the chorus, chorus has made content with Schumer. Like, I guess I would say it's a very vague term. It's probably the most broad term, because I don't think we want to get it, again, like, too specific.
The important thing here, Taylor, is to Hutch's point, based on, and I found this when I read your article too, you use centrist as like a pejorative, right?
No, for this one we say that, like, when
in general you do. You've used, you don't like the Democrats, and you especially don't like centrist Democrats. This is just like your ideological.
Certain issues. I think it depends on the type of.
Do you use centrist as a pejorative?
In general, you use centrist as a pejorative, right? Like you view these people as like these feckless do-nothings, and like
I think you're completely putting words in my mouth that I have not said. I think I don't like Chuck Schumer, and there's a lot of what he says, but there's a lot of people that are quote unquote centrist that I absolutely respect and work with, and that worked on this article. Like, there's people just to be clear, this article went through so many editors that have such a range of political beliefs. And I hear you that maybe you disagree that Olivia Juliana is classified as we described her, a centrist Gen Z influencer who spoke at the 2024 DNC.
I think when you look at her,
issue with that, and
that's beside the point. I mean, whether or not she disputed it, I think if most people, well, hang on, just let me real quick. I'm not trying to cut you off very much. So just let me say.
Okay, sorry.
I think if like a reasonable person went to Olivia Juliana's feed and they saw her policy priorities, I think that they would colloquially understand her to be just sort of like a standard Gen Z progressive Democrat who's focused on progressive
is also the reason progressive has come up so much. And somebody was trying to get me to write a story about this recently, which I was like, this is not really my beat, is because so many people have tried to replace the word centrist with progressive. And this has been like a thing that influencers were actually given. This is totally separate from my story. And this is like something else. Maybe I'll write about it. I don't know. Probably not. But there is an effort as certain words become stigmatized or have negative, maybe you're saying this has like a negative view with some people, they're trying to use other words. So you see them use the word progressive instead of centrist, or the word whatever.
No. I'm not talking about self-assigned labels. I mean, I think most people would look at her policy proposals and think, okay, that's just like
what do you think about Biden, Hutch? I mean, let's be honest, right? Like, so if Biden were described as a centrist Democrat,
Olivia Juliana was a Biden dead ender. So she absolutely is a Biden Democrat.
That does not.
Would you describe Biden as progressive?
Hang on, yes.
AOC and Bernie were Biden dead
exactly, yes. AOC and Bernie Sanders were...
describe them as Democrats. I guess they're not.
AOC
they're progressives, right? They're progressives, right? That doesn't make them as centrists.
I would call them democratic socialists, right?
Well, listen, if you had to choose between progressive and centrist to describe AOC and Bernie, what would you choose?
It totally depends on the context of the article.
I feel like you're being
because
a little
Bernie has been
there.
Because look at what Bernie's been doing with his AI policy. Like I think
nobody would call him a centrist. Nobody
I wouldn't call him,
but
I wouldn't call him progressive either on certain things. I
don't understand what these words mean anymore. I mean, like more broadly, you said that there were 90. Did you see a list of 90 people? Is that how many people you saw?
So just to be clear, I understand that you take issue with the way that editors categorize
these people, but
that's an opinion, though. You're inserting
it's not
an
opinion. Well, this is Chuck Johnson saying that us calling him a Holocaust denier is an opinion, or us saying that Tucker Carlson is a right winger is an opinion. All we can do is try to best reflect the ideology that often we use self-described ideologies, but all we can do.
I think she self-describes as a progressive at this point. So that's where I'm a little bit confused.
At this point, maybe, but I would say again, if you ask actual people that are further to the left than her, they will say not. So
that's the issue. That's the issue.
Right, and that's
Far left tankies will call Bernie Sanders a centrist, but it's not accurate.
No, but that's the issue, because I think you're framing your article from the position of like the left.
But I didn't even write that line. So like
your name's on the
of course, but I want you to understand how journalism works, right?
Okay.
The way that journalism works, it's not just that Wired is my personal blog and I can go and write whatever I want, right? And I can just go and publish on Wired and nobody's going to look at it, right? No, especially with an investigation like this, the way it happens is I find information, right? I get people trying to whistleblow in this case about a program that they're in. And I go to an editor and I say, hey, I have all of this source material, all of this people. Would you be interested in a story? Yes. Okay. I work with that editor to draft the story. It then goes through rounds, in this case, rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of review from many different editors that not only transform the story, rewrite parts of the story, add things, take things away, but also then it goes through legal review. Then it goes through copy edits and stuff. Like it goes through. So, but I just want you to understand, because I think, yes, my name is at the top of the story because this is my reporting. This is my reporting that I brought forward fundamentally. But if you're going to take issue with like random sort of characterizations, and again, I understand.
I don't think it's random. I think it was deliberate. I think it was deliberate.
Okay,
framing.
well, I guess.
Why don't you get to there? I mean, why don't you go there and just ask Taylor?
With the copy editor.
I'm trying to have a conversation with her. I don't know why you're jumping in here.
No, because it's kind of a stupid critique to be like, hey, centrist. It's kind of the eye of the beholder. Like, yeah. So Joe Biden would describe himself as a centrist Democrat, correct? Yes or no?
No, peaceful. The whole point.
Wait. Can you answer that first? Can you answer that? So the question you should ask. You should ask is, Taylor, did you
let me finish my track?
The question that you should ask is, Taylor, were you attempting to imply something nefarious when you use centrist there? Were you trying to imply that they were aligned with the DNC?
Well,
ask the question about her intention.
Listen, Taylor, respectfully, I think you were doing that. I think you did.
I didn't even write that. I wrote the list of influencers' names. I didn't even originally.
Well, here we have another spot here where you say that.
Hutch, before you do the next thing, because
I can't.
Taylor, you did say that I was putting words in your mouth, but if you search on your Twitter centrist, it's very clear that you use this as a pejorative term, and like that can be your opinion, that's fine, but to claim that that's not like your ideological spin is a little frustrating.
Sure, but I would say, in what context is it? Is in what context? Because I think, certainly, do I get annoyed at certain centrist people? Sure.
I think that there was an intention there to be disparaging, and I think it's broader than that.
Okay, but this is just honestly, I didn't write the sort of things. It's fine if she had taken. Just let me finish instead of just let me finish.
Well, you have been cutting me off pretty consistently throughout this entire exchange.
All right. Well, then this is just not going to be we're not going to be able to have a conversation, because we're talking about a story that was edited by so many people, and I don't know what to tell you other than
Okay, so are you distancing yourself from that label?
Oh my God! If Olivia Juliana had reached out after that story and said, "You grossly mischaracterized my views. I'm not a centrist. Take it out. You mischaracterized it, whatever." I would have been happy to bring that to the editor, and the editor could have looked at her positions and decided whether or not that was correct.
Taylor,
this is how journalism
opinion
works.
But Taylor, her opinion is not especially relevant. Like if you're saying it. If you're saying that the language, if you're saying that the centrist language,
oh my God,
was not something that you picked, is that your way of saying that you're kind of distancing yourself from that language?
I would have, until this conversation, called Olivia Juliana a centrist because she's a Democrat in a red state, and I would imagine that most people that are the Democrats in the red states lean to the center. Also, when I had spoken to her years ago, that was my understanding of her. And also, that's, again, we did not receive any criticism of this. This is the first criticism that I've even heard of this.
Well,
so
I think it's important because I do think that
I'm
it was.
sorry you feel this way, but this is just completely
Well, you don't need to apologize to me. I'm just.
Well, I mean, it's just completely unproductive.
I feel like you're becoming quite defensive and evasive right now.
No, it's
I feel like I'm
because I feel like I'm dealing
very...
with the white nationalists, because this is all I do all day is go back and forth with the white
Hutch
nationalists.
is bald by choice, but it's not because of that.
It is the same ridiculous argument where it's like, oh,
you think the questions that I asked you amount to like being questioned by a white nationalist?
I will tell you, they are the
much.
exact. Why don't you listen? They are the exact same words you're using, the exact same method of saying, right? When we write about Tucker Carlson, and I've gone back and forth with Tucker Carlson's team on this exact issue, right? We'll say, well, we characterize you as XYZ, far right. Right? Far right is actually even more common than the right with white nationalists. And every time I write about a right-wing influencer and we say, well, we are, whatever, here's the article, here, we're asking you for comment, blah, 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 blah. They will say, I'm not far right. I'm not far right. I'm progressive. In some cases, they even say, even Tim Pool types, I'm actually progressive. Okay, but
Taylor, I think
they're not. Just let me finish.
Well, so Taylor, you've been cutting me off this whole time.
Well,
respectfully.
Respectfully, all I am saying is that when you're writing an article, we do our best to be accurate. Now, if Olivia Juliana is not a centrist and that's so inaccurate, again, she could happily request a correction from Wired. She never did. No one brought this up.
Can I reframe this? Because like
ever raised.
The point is not necessarily whether or not it's accurate to call her a centrist. If this was like the specific pedantic sticking point, I can see this like, oh, this is for. But it's not. What Hutch is getting at is that this article is clearly viewed as, hey, we're painting these chorus people who are taking this money as these kind of shills, these DNC operatives who are just paid to get these talking points and just repeat exactly what the do-nothing centrist Dems do, right? And that's kind of where the perspective that he's saying this is kind of like an opinionated...
That's taking a lot from an article that doesn't say a lot. And I don't doubt that that's how TikTokers were taking it. And that's not how TikTokers and people on Instagram threads are taking it. But if you actually read the article, you will see that it is quite clear what we say. And this is not a DNC.
Listen. But,
this is poor Shelby at the DNC had to literally kept being like, guys, this is not a DNC program. Obviously, they support the DNC. But the DNC has its own influencer program.
On August 27th, you tweeted, the 90 influencers involved appear to be primarily centrist, pro-DNC,
yes,
who have not spoken about Palestine, are pro-Israel. Those are your words.
Yes.
But you just said a moment ago, you're kind of distancing yourself from that framing.
No, I didn't. What are you talking about?
That's what Soy Pill just confronted you with, and you said, well, I can understand why people walked away with that, but those are your words.
I'm sorry. They're centrist. Again, if Olivia Juliana is not a centrist, and that is factually wrong, and these people are not centrist, and this is factually wrong, that these content creators that are making content with Chuck Schumer, that are making content with Hakeem Jeffries, if I was wrong, if this article is wrong, and it's factually wrong, then I highly encourage them to ask for a correction. But no one has asked for a correction. Can we do it step by step? Saying that they are not centrist. No one.
Let's just do it step by step. Hutch, is it your contention that it's inaccurate to call Olivia Juliana a centrist?
I do believe that, yes, and I think that she used that word intentionally. Well, I don't know why you're playing dumb here. You understand that when Taylor uses that word, it's a pejorative.
Hang on. So separate that intent. So you can make a critique of an article based on its accuracy or based on whether there's some bad motive.
I'm trying to get to a larger.
Is it your contention? I know, but let's just do it step by step. Let's do it step by step, right? Is it inaccurate? And so, and if it's inaccurate, why is it inaccurate?
It's inaccurate because her policy priorities do not line up with what any reasonable person would assert to be a centrist. When you look at the things that she's advocating for. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, you can say, you can just make this argument about anything.
But what does it mean to be pro-DNC or pro-Israel? What does that mean?
So pro-DNC means pro-Democrat, like pro sort of the Democrat establishment, what I would say, which is very much Chorus's goal. And pro-Israel means that the majority of people that we found that were public, which is why I think it's so crucial for them to actually release these names publicly, because I think if this is not the majority view held among their creators, they should release these names publicly to make it clear what is the ideological makeup of their chorus class. But a lot of the people that we found were also pro-Israel, meaning they were expressing support for Israel against and
how many creators out of like all the creators that you saw would you say were posting pro-Israel posts? Can you name names there?
Well, that's the point, right? Is that they haven't published the roster. They haven't published the roster, but a decent amount of ones that we checked.
Did anybody in the people that you mentioned in the article, so like Olivia Packman, Brian Tyler Cohen, did any of them post pro-Israel content?
You'll have to go check their specific feeds. But Brian Tyler Cohen,
you claim that they were primarily pro-Israel, right?
Yeah. Well, some people that are pro-Israel just don't speak about the genocide in Gaza at all, for instance, and that's
not
another
the same thing as being pro-Israel.
Yes, because a way that pro-Israel narratives have been shaped by the media is by not mentioning the genocide. So intentionally refusing to cover the genocide, especially as it was this politically relevant topic.
Is that what you were alleging?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you look at the pro-Israel kind of creator landscape, there's a range of pro-Israel people. There's people that are straight up making content with the IDF. They're super overt about it. And then there are people that are a little bit more behind the scenes, people that are a little bit quieter about it. They might not be overt, but they're still.
But by the way, that you're suggesting that if somebody chooses not to discuss the genocide in Gaza, and that makes them pro-Israel. I find that to be
that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Wait a second.
What I said is that some people. No, what I said is that some people who are pro-Israel, the way that they sort of. The way that their content manifests is that they are not as overt. So what they'll do is they'll try to tamp down discussion. They'll be sometimes deleting comments, a lot of times just intentionally ignoring the issue, or when they're asked, to interview a politician, especially this was a big issue in the lead up to the 2024 election, you had people saying, like, sort of minimizing the issue, attempting to minimize it, attempting not to get people on the left to talk about it.
Okay, does that qualify? Does that apply to any creator that was mentioned in your article?
Well, you'll have to go through and do an audit of all of their content, but it's certainly
isn't that your job though? You made the claim.
Yeah,
you said that the group was primarily pro-Israel. Isn't it your job to go through their group that we saw? From the amount of creators that we saw, that was a common theme. But that wasn't necessarily a... you didn't say a common theme. You said they were primarily pro-Israel.
Yeah, from the group of creators that we saw, that we were evaluating.
So I'll ask again, was anybody that you mentioned in your article someone that you would say was pro-Israel?
Well, you'll have to go look at the article and figure that out for yourself based on the creators.
Wait,
not all of the
with
creators.
You. I don't understand.
But we're not going to... There's a lot of creators that we spoke to for this article that we know are in chorus that weren't mentioned in the article.
I'm just asking you if anyone in your article you consider to be pro-Israel.
Well, I don't know. You'll have to, I really don't. I don't remember which creators that we named and didn't name off the top of our head, but I think you can just go and look at them and frankly ask the creators themselves. That's a great thing to do.
I just don't know why you would say that 90 influencers were primarily pro-Israel, but you can't name a single
we said 90. We said the creators that we were able to suss out as being part of the program. So one thing that we asked is for them to publish a roster so that people could take a broader look. Maybe this is just a section, right? Maybe this is just a small section that
so it could be an unrepresentative section.
Exactly. It could be a totally unrepresentative section. They could have.
But what was the methodology to decipher whether they're pro-Israel? Was it
mostly whether their own statements or whether they had shown up in other influencer, like pro sort of Israel influencer efforts broadly. I mean, there are people also that I've talked to in this program that identify as Zionists privately and don't want to identify as a Zionist publicly. So I'm not trying to put specific creators on blast. I actually don't think that being pro or anti-Israel was ever something that was necessarily something that would get you in or out of chorus at all, but it clearly is that's
useful to clear up. So
yeah,
as you sit here,
I said that after the story went up too. Yeah,
go ahead,
Hutch.
But in your conversation on Current Affair, you did absolutely buy into the manufacturing logic that those hosts were presenting, which they were saying that they were heavily suggesting that the creators that were invited into course were chosen because they were not speaking up about Gaza.
So you're talking about a guy that used to work for Brian Tyler Cohen, who was working.
Oh, I understand that, but you agreed with that framing.
For David Pakman. Well, listen, I'm not going to disagree with whatever he wants to say was his experience working for David Pakman, one of the leaders of Chorus. This is his former producer.
He was commenting on your reporting. He was going beyond his experience, and he was suggesting that Chorus was choosing creators because they were not speaking up about Israel.
He said that he was told when he worked for David Pakman that he was not, that they were not supposed to be overt about the Israel stuff.
No, I
and you can
understand, but
go
that-
back and
that's a
listen to
different-
that and take issue
No,
with that. But
that's
he
not what I'm
worked
talking about.
he worked for David Pakman. I'm not going to argue with him working for David
Taylor,
Pakman.
he was speaking about your reporting. They
Yeah,
were
he- in the
characterizing your
context of
reporting.
his job, he worked for David Pakman. He was David Pakman's producer, so he would know better than anyone whether David Pakman, what his boundaries were around issues related to Israel and what sort of content they wanted to put up. He would know. He was literally David Pakman's producer, so he knows a lot better than I do. He has a lot more visibility into David Pakman's content than I do.
I think you're being evasive again, because I'm not talking about his experience. I'm talking about his characterization of your reporting.
Well, his characterization is shaped by his experience, which he has a lot more of than I do.
But you bolstered that suggestion of manufacturing consent about this issue in Gaza.
I'm gonna again defer you to him. He actually worked for David Pakman, so you
agreed with the framing, Taylor. You agreed with the framing when they were having that conversation.
He worked for David Pakman. So if he says that these were the lines that David Pakman drove when he worked for him, and that David Pakman told him this, and he had visibility not into just David Pakman, but all these sort of people that David Pakman worked with, I am going to listen to him, because again, he's a primary source.
Okay. Another part of your reporting referred to an older article that you wrote, I think a few months before this Chorus one, and you had described a 2024 situation where the Biden administration was, your quote was, snubbing creators who had lightly criticized Biden. Do you remember saying that?
I think you're talking about my Washington Post article when I wrote about the Biden administration effectively blacklisting content creators.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in your Wired article about Chorus, you described that as the Biden. You said in 2024, President Joe Biden's White House snubbed several prominent content creators after they lightly criticized the administration over its policies on climate change, COVID, Gaza, and the TikTok ban.
Yes. Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
My issue with that is the word lightly, because I actually clicked on that article and I looked up the creators that you mentioned in that article. One of them was Aiden Cohn Murphy. He was tweeting that Biden created a man-made famine, was ignoring the law to enable
but he was
genocidal
blacklisted before
attacks.
all of that. He was blacklisted for the climate stuff.
Well, you mentioned him, and so when you say lightly,
but at that point he had only lightly criticized. So the Biden
no, that's not true. I went through his tweets and I found tweets in 2024 of him.
You're talking about Aiden Cohn Murphy, who is the co-founder of TikTok for Biden. Just to be clear. The co-founder of TikTok for Biden. So Aiden ended up being very critical of Joe Biden.
But that was a 2020. That was a 2020 effort, right?
No, that was well into 2022. That was
the TikTok for Biden.
Yeah, exactly. Gen Z for Change was
but in
TikTok
2024,
for Biden.
But in 2024, Taylor, he was directly accusing Biden of being complicit in genocide.
But we're not talking about that. He's speaking, by the way, as a member of Gen Z for Change, and he's talking about the evolution of TikTok for Biden through Gen Z for Change. And part of the reason why TikTok for Biden became Gen Z for Change, and part of the reason why there was this whole evolution, is because Biden's digital, whoever was in charge of sort of digital press there, was blacklisting creators that were even just lightly critical. And I'm not saying that Aiden
creators were not lightly criticizing Biden.
Maybe Aiden eventually was not, but
it wasn't just him. There was also Elise Joshi. She made similar accusations. So she accused the Biden administration of being complicit in genocide, right?
No. But Elise wasn't banned for any of that. It was the climate stuff. This was the climate stuff, and for COVID. So this is all back in. No, this is all back in 2022, 2023, even 2021, when Biden started to say, hey, COVID is over, everybody get back to work. A lot of disability justice activists, a lot of climate activists were lightly being like, hey, well, what about this? What about these promises that you made, right?
Okay.
Khalil Green.
In your Chorus article, you do reference that several creators were snubbed for lightly criticizing him, and then when I clicked on the hyperlink, the creators that you did mention, they were not lightly criticizing.
Well,
Biden,
because those are some of the people that we quoted as giving sort of expert commentary on that that fracturing, which is again quoting Aiden, the founder of TikTok for Biden, talking about Gen Z for Change. But a lot of the creators that were ultimately snubbed, I would say, blacklisted, they would say, they certainly did not. In some cases, in some cases, people from the digital team just didn't like that they were liking posts that were critical of the administration.
Well, I read the article. I didn't read anything about that. I just read about.
Well, I'm happy to elaborate.
To zoom out, Taylor, I mean, the point here is not just, oh, did they or did they not lightly criticize? It's that if you read this paragraph, it seems to be that you're painting President Joe Biden and his administration as this snowflakey, like, oh, you can't even say the slightest bad thing. In reality,
they were extremely the Biden administration, the way that they dealt with not just the sort of the creators, compared to Obama, not compared to Trump. Trump's even more crazy, but really, I would say compared to Obama, they were incredibly sensitive. And I think that sensitivity only grew throughout his presidency for so many reasons. Number one, he was older. And, I think there was a lot more protectionism. They were less likely to let a lot of creators in. They were getting nervous about unfiltered press. This is also why they started to get very prickly with the actual journalists as well. And again, nothing compared to Trump. Like, Trump kicked out all the reporters from the Pentagon and just gave us influencers. However, he was incredibly prickly, and still even compared to his team, compared to most of the other.
Well, Taylor, I'm just going off of your reporting, and I did read both of these articles like multiple times. I tried my best to really take what you were saying at face value and approach it in good faith. And just in your reporting, the creators that you did cite, I think, went well beyond lightly.
Eventually, but not when they were blacklisted.
No,
eventually,
in 2024,
contemporaneously.
Khalil Green is not a radical. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not true. Like, these are not a lot of these people. I'm
not calling them a radical. I'm saying taking issue with your characterization of their criticism.
Elise and Aiden eventually began criticizing him a lot more openly. However, neither of those started criticizing him very openly
in 2024.
Okay, but neither of them were doing that when they got blacklisted. And Khalil Green has never come out and been some sort of aggressive critic of the Biden administration.
What was the timeline for when they got blacklisted? Do you remember when that happened?
Between 2020 and 2024, it's sort of throughout that whole time period, because it was COVID, it was climate, it was Gaza eventually. It was student.
The examples that you gave they were not light criticisms when I read those. So.
Well, COVID, a lot of this was also them trying to do stuff behind the scenes. I mean, these were people that, and not just them, by the way, this was dozens of content creators had this experience, and journalists as well had this experience throughout the Biden administration. You can read about it in Alex Thompson's great book. The Biden administration was they became more and more intense about restricting access to the administration, restricting access to press, they for good reason. Now we know why, but it is a fact.
Okay, I want listen. I don't want to bombard you. Let me make one more kind of if you don't mind, if you're okay, I'd like to ask you just one more question regarding the piece, and then we can kind of get to the overall point and just finish.
How come you never asked me or Pisco or Guy?
Okay, let's hear it.
So the part of your reporting that I think is the weakest, the most vulnerable to attack, is your characterization of the contract language, specifically when you talked about the contract required chorus creators to funnel booking appearances through chorus. They had to get express authorization before they what was it, put up content or set up interviews, this kind of a thing.
No, they had to leverage the chorus newsroom when they were making when they were booking appearances
in the contract. That's what it said.
Yeah,
well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, look, like, certain people had certain aspects of the contract enforced against them. Certain people didn't have aspects of the contract enforced against them. And
did you speak to any creators that were told that they had to funnel all their bookings through chorus?
We did speak to a creator who didn't sign the contract because of that.
No, that's not what I asked. Hang on.
Yeah, they were told that. Yes, they were told that. Yes, they were told that.
Not that they were told. I'm asking you, did you actually get a single example from any creator who actually had to funnel booking through chorus?
Well, yeah, we spoke to a lot of creators that funneled booking through chorus.
No.
Yes.
Hang on. I'm asking you, did you talk to anyone that told you that all of the bookings that they did had to go through chorus?
We spoke to a creator who was told that all of the bookings that they had to do were, sorry, if they wanted to do bookings, it would have to be filtered through Chorus. And so he chose not to take that. Just let me finish. Why don't you let me finish?
You're not answering my
You
question.
well, I am answering your question.
You're not. I'm asking
Yes, I am.
in practice, did you have a single example of a creator who told you that Chorus in practice told them they had to funnel everything through Chorus?
Yes.
Can you? What you just described was not that. So could you?
Well, I'm
could you
trying
elaborate?
to give you additional context, but you don't want it.
No, I do, but you're not answering my question.
I just answered your question. Yes.
I don't think you are.
Can you repeat it, Taylor, just in case Hutch missed something? But I'm not sure I heard it to be the same as what was described in the article. So
we spoke. I don't even think we went into this amount of detail in the article. We spoke to a creator that was told when he pushed back on the contract before the contract was signed, he was like, hey, I kind of want to sign this contract. I kind of want to do this program, but there's this clause that says I have to use the Chorus newsroom. Do I really have to use the Chorus newsroom for booking? He was told through his agent, yes, you do have to use the Chorus newsroom for booking. Other people, when they took part in the program, when they said, oh yeah, I'm going to book this thing, they were told you have to use the Chorus newsroom for that. And they did ultimately use the Chorus newsroom. Other people used the Chorus newsroom and never questioned it. It was in the contract, and it would have never occurred to them to even question what was in the contract because they signed a contract saying this, so they didn't challenge it. When they were asked for comment on this, Chorus didn't deny it. And that's the truth. That's all the information.
They didn't respond to it, but that's not the same as verifying.
No, they didn't deny it.
Well, that's not the same as verifying that the letter of the contract was actually being enforced, and that's the big issue here.
They didn't deny it, and they didn't deny it.
But that's still your job as a journalist to verify that it's something that's enforced. We did verify it
with the content creators who said on the record that this happened, and that's why it's in the story.
I don't think you demonstrated that in the story.
We have a quote from a creator saying that he chose not to sign the contract over this.
That's not the same thing, though. I feel like you're being quite
so to be clear, like Taylor, there's a difference between a creator understood this contract to be I can't do anything unless I go through the newsroom,
well, the contract
and they were not allowed to do it unless they went through the newsroom, and unless they clarify that because they did not comment, it's not really established. And the article portrays it as that is exactly how it was.
The contract, that is how all evidence that we have shows that that's how it was. But did some people maybe not have the contract enforced against them? Sure, I'm sure, because clearly they were only enforcing certain parts of the contract for certain people. Yes. So clearly.
Well, no, I mean, what is your evidence for that, by the way?
Speaking to the content creators.
Nothing about that was in your article that gave me the sense that they were giving preferential treatment and not enforcing it here and enforcing it there. That was not in your article.
Well, literally, I mean, you can see in the article, certain people, why do you think this article exists? Because the content creators were frustrated. They wanted to speak out about things. They felt like they weren't able to speak out. That's part of why they spoke.
Well, the other thing was like the takedown clause. Like that sounds very restrictive, right? The way that your article describes that language is that, Chorus reserved the right to like strike down any content.
I mean, we quote directly from the contract. Yeah.
I understand. The problem here, Taylor, is with all three of these things, the funneling, express authorization, takedown clauses, would this not be standard language in a contract for a 501c4?
I've seen a lot of these contracts. I just wrote another story for Wired on another dark money influencer program, and none of this language has been in the other contracts that I've seen that are for similar programs.
Okay, but you understand that, like, obviously, like a 501c4, they have to be in compliance with like the law, and to protect their status, they can't have a certain threshold of their operational kind of structure and funds and stuff going towards things like campaigns and elections and things like that. So in that context,
I'm telling you, I write about dark money.
Hang on, real quick. Could you not read this language as a company that is trying to protect itself, the status, and the creators themselves from violating the law?
Well, the creators themselves often didn't agree with what was in the contract and were frustrated that they couldn't speak out, for instance, and disclose that they were in the program. There's nothing to do with the law. Well, that's in the contract, and that's exactly what we're talking about here, right?
No, it's not, though. I'm talking about the funneling, express authorization, takedown clauses. All of these can be explained by a 501c4 trying to be compliant with the law.
No, because I just wrote about another 501c4 that literally just ran another dark money campaign. In some cases, approached some of the same exact Chorus influencers, and none of this was in that contract. So
but
So,
their
for example,
lack of
real quick,
potentially
quick,
standard 501(c)(3 things is not, or four, is
Well,
not evidence that this
but
isn't
I'm saying
standard
it's not
practice.
standard. You guys are saying it's standard. I'm saying I have not seen it in other contracts. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist
Well,
in some
Wait, Hutch,
contracts.
Hutch, are you claiming it's standard? You're not claiming it's standard, are you?
Well, based on what I looked into, this language would be consistent with a 501c4 that is protecting.
Is it your claim that it's standard or not?
Hang tight, Pisco. We can talk in a second. So Taylor,
Conveniently, he doesn't want to answer you. Conveniently.
No, if a creator, for example, uploaded a video to their channel where they were endorsing a particular candidate, and the channel, this video was framed as something that came from Chorus, could that threaten Chorus's nonprofit status?
I think you'll have to look into the details of sort of like how that creator was disclosing it.
The answer is yes. It could possibly threaten their status. So if they had a clause in their contract that they could take down content, would it not be a better, like a good faith interpretation that they could very easily be trying to protect?
I've never seen a C4 put this stuff in a contract before.
Okay.
And
well,
I've written
I can look into that after this.
But maybe they do, maybe they do. But like I said, I have reported on campaigns and I haven't seen it there before. I haven't, for instance, the Build American AI thing I just wrote about, they don't have Build American AI newsroom that you have to use, like I haven't seen this sort of language.
Would you concede that it's possible? Would you concede that it's possible that this language was specifically crafted to make sure that they were compliant with the law?
Until they comment on the record and explain their thinking behind it, I mean, we have no idea what their motivations were.
Well, but Taylor, I mean, like, let's be realistic here. Like, obviously, there are things that these people are restricted by. They cannot appear partisan in certain aspects, and
but
so
that doesn't trickle down to the creator. And I'm actually not confident at all in your reading of that. I would really want to talk to a lawyer, and I'd want to talk to somebody that works on these contracts and say, hey, I've reported on lots of these contracts. Why is it only in this contract and not others? Why do they structure it this way and not in other ways?
My question is, why would you not immediately look at this like news reporter tool? Because the way it's painted in the article is like this sinister controlling tool, and not what makes the most sense to me, which is you need to make sure that we're not violating the law when you're reaching out to these places.
Because
and it's
I've
clear
never
that some of
known
these
another
people
C4
were
campaign
able to schedule things outside with other politicians, so long as it wasn't Chorus related, right?
Yeah,
that was the whole point.
My point is that I've written about all these campaigns. I've never seen this language in a contract before. I'm not familiar with any sort of booking systems that other people use. I would be very surprised. I talk to content creators that take part in a lot of these sort of campaigns. This is not standard from what I've seen. I'm sorry.
Well,
I know that it's your interpretation of it.
This is a new kind of media thing, right? Like it's still pretty novel.
No.
For
Trump is, the right wingers have been doing this.
Stuff,
they've been doing this for a while. The right wingers do it all the time. And
you're well aware that 501c4s can lose their nonprofit status if they do too much electioneering, or if they do like event content like around like political campaigns and things like that. I question why it seems as though you and your team didn't even consider that this
we did talk to other people. I had lawyers look at this contract. I had contract lawyers, not to mention all the Hollywood agents that were involved in this. Half the influencers that we spoke to have agents and managers at major talent agencies that were involved in this. None of them raised this issue. So I'm not saying that.
Were you made aware of any actual instance where Chorus requested to take down content from any creator?
No, we didn't find any enforcement action on that.
Were you made aware of any creator that had to get express authorization before like setting up a interview with a politician?
We did talk to creators that were told they had to use the Chorus news.
No, but you keep doing this, Taylor. Come on, you're being.
I'm just telling you. I'm sorry. I'm
not talking about people who are afraid of the contract.
But listen, all I can tell you is what my reporting says, and I know you guys want more. All I can tell you is what my reporting says and what I found and who we spoke to. I'm sorry. I'm not going to keep going around in circles. It is so pointless. None of this is relevant. You don't seem to have this issue with any other article that I've written about this stuff. It's crazy. It's just
this is the only article of yours that I'm familiar with. I did a lot of. I spent a lot of time.
No, like okay, all right. I'm sorry that I'm trying to explain to you what we found in our reporting.
That's fine. I don't want to press you further. I just want to say that I do think that you had an agenda with this article. I do think that you had opinions that you put in the article.
You can join the many that I have agendas on.
I think the narrative that you were pressing was that the big, bad, corrupt establishment was paying Democratic shills and suppressing leftist voices. I think that is
leftist voices.
Where's
the leftist voices in that? Where does it say leftist? Where are you even getting that from?
Well, the opinions that seem to be censored, like it's Gaza or too pro climate change, these are more progressive, more leftist ideas that are as based on what the article is saying.
You guys sound like TikTokers.
But this is what it says in the article. What do you mean?
I mean, I just honestly, can I tell you? This is I'm sorry to trigger you with the word centrist. This is a mainstream centrist Democrat program. Okay. It's for mainstream centrist Democrats, right? Look at the people that are in it. Overwhelmingly. Brian Tyler Cohen, I would say they're not trying to get radical anarchists for this program. Do you think they are?
I think most reasonable people, when they look at Brian Tyler Cohen, I don't think they would call him a centrist. I think they would call him a partisan Democrat.
A Democrat. This is a program by a notorious pro-Democrat group running a program to increase the Democrats.
What does that mean? Notorious.
Well, 1630 fund is pretty notorious. It's a pretty big deal. I mean, it's a
huge. 1630? Or are we talking course?
1630, which is the funder behind all of it, right?
I understand the difference.
1630 is a notorious dark money group. It is literally the liberal answer to the Koch network. I mean, it's very well known. They do a lot of work in the Democrat space.
Listen, that's a separate conversation about about like should Democrats do any kind of dark money stuff while this is the letter of the law because of Citizens United.
Sure. Who cares? But we can debate it. But I'm just saying, like, you guys have this thing, like I have to say, it really annoys me, I guess, because like I think it's very revealing that you don't engage with most of my work.
Wait a second. I don't need to familiarize myself with your entire body of work to critique this article, Taylor.
Well, I think that the fact that you have only engaged with my work through tweets and through this article has given you a view of things that I would argue is
Taylor, you can't throw that at me. I like your pro-privacy or anti-privacy law or pro-privacy laws. I like your
okay, but like this is crazy
stuff,
that
so, I have the same beef.
But I Taylor, I saw you making claims about these people. You said that out of the 90 creators, they're primarily pro-Israel.
The ones that we found.
That's a pretty big claim, but you couldn't name anybody. That's
I'm not going to put them out. I'm not going to. We didn't name the majority of content creators that we found in the program. We didn't name.
Of the ones that you named in the article, you couldn't name a single one that was pro-Israel.
I know that's now who's twisting the words. I said you'll have to go through and ask. I don't even remember which creators we named in the article, but you can go through and the ones we did, and you can ask them their stance on Israel.
No, but this is your words. You said that they were primarily pro-Israel, and of all the people you named in the article, you can't give me one. That's bizarre.
Okay, go ask them. Go ask them then. Go ask them. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm asking you. You did reporting on them.
It doesn't say anything about Israel in the article. I don't know what to tell you.
That was your commentary.
He's referring to your tweet on the 27th.
Yeah, and that's my tweet, and I'm not gonna list out the influencers that are not even named in our piece in a tweet. I'm giving commentary on my article. You can read the article all you want. I don't know what to tell you. You guys seem. It's crazy to me. What is so crazy to me about all of this is that for whatever reason, this random these random people like you, this Destiny person, it's like they are like they have all these issues with the article that like the 1630 fund doesn't have any issues with it. Even the chorus lawyers don't.
I'm not asking about anybody else. I'm just reading.
But it's just. But I understand, and I do my best. I really try to be an open book, and I really do. Like I go out of my way to engage with people like you that have questions. But at a certain point,
I felt like I asked you good questions, and you got very evasive and frustrated with me.
I don't completely disagree with that characterization. I do not think that you're coming in good faith. I think that you have a clear view of it.
I read that a lot. I looked into a lot of this stuff. I spent a lot of time on this. I didn't want to take you out of context. I think you probably have gone
down a lot of wild goose chases on something that's pretty straightforward.
Do you think influencers that use this, do you think that like left-wing commentators that use this article to push a narrative that these creators were being paid to be quiet about Israel, do you think that they were being irresponsible?
I have said from the jump that Israel was never a qualification that we
found. I'm asking, do you think that it was irresponsible of them to do that?
Well, as I just said, I'm answering you, and I'm sorry. I know you keep wanting me to say a specific string of words, and I'm just answering you as best as I can. I think that's a fair question because a lot of people that you're friendly with did push that narrative that they were being paid to be quiet about genocide, which I think is a really disgusting accusation. What I would say is that is that we don't know the ideological makeup, and I said this publicly since the article went up. We don't know the true ideological makeup of the entire cohort because.
Why'd you say they're primarily centrist?
Those are the people that we found. And as I have said from the beginning,
there's 90 people.
Oh my God. Again, if the ideological makeup of this program is different, this is an argument for why they should be transparent. Because right now, the people that we found do share certain ideology. They do share certain belief systems. And if there's this secret group of leftists or further to the right people or other libertarians or who knows what that is also being funded by this program, then I think it would behoove them to publish the roster, because right
but
now,
until that comes out, Taylor, is it irresponsible for influencers to cast aspersions and just assume that
I
this
think
is this
influencers
giant...
should be arguing for transparency and say, until
Okay, but that's not what they're doing. So would it be irresponsible for them to just
I think
make
there's
these
so much
conclusions?
irresponsible
Of
stuff
course.
on TikTok, and I'm not going to litigate every single thing. But yes, of course they're being irresponsible. Of course there's people being irresponsible. However, that doesn't mean that I think that they're making baseless conclusions based on the very small amount of sort of view that they have into it. I'm sympathetic to the people that run the program if they say, well, this is not representative. I would say this is an argument for transparency, right? If you have this whole other class of content creators that are part of your program that have radically different beliefs than the content creators that were made public, then why can they still not come forward? Why can they still not publish their contract? Why can they still not speak out? Why are you still not publishing the roster?
You would have to ask them, but the merits of your reporting are your own, and you're accountable for the things that you say. And when you say, you look at a list of 90 people and they're primarily centrist, and then 2 seconds ago you say,
sorry,
we don't really know
I would say
the ideological leanings.
We do. No, first of all, the section of creators that we saw, they're pro-Democrat. They're pro, and I would call that centrist. Now there are also
Really?
just pro-Democrat?
Really?
Well, establishment, they're pro-establishment Democrat. We're not talking about radicals. You're talking about the radical
What does that
people.
mean?
What I mean is that like the leftist anarchist people on TikTok don't seem to be part of this program. I haven't seen any of those people a part of this program. I haven't seen those people connected to this program.
But not being radically left is not the same thing as being centrist, Taylor.
Right. I understand that, but
You're conflating them.
Okay, what label to make you happy, so I don't trigger you with the wrong word?
Something reasonable.
No, okay.
Wait. This is the stupidest fucking point of all time. That like the Democratic Party is a center-left party, and we embrace that, right? This show's called Live and Learn.
Do you think Brian Tyler Cohen is a
wait, Hutch. Democratic Party. Hutch, real quick. Hutch. The Democratic Party is a center-left party. Is that correct?
Is Brian Tyler Cohen a centrist?
Wait, Hutch. Can you answer one question?
No.
Answer one question.
You answer mine.
Answer one question. Is the Democratic Party center-left?
You answer mine. Is Brian Tyler Cohen a centrist?
All
right. Hutch,
I'm center left. You're center left. We're centrist.
Question.
Okay.
Hutch, what is the right word?
Hutch, wait. Answer the question. Hutch, is the Democratic Party? Hutch,
you were using centrist as a pejorative, and you know that's what you were doing.
That's different. Hutch, is the Democratic Party a center left party?
Yes, broadly, yes.
Okay, so if what is meant by centrist, right? It's the stupidest fucking point. If what is all is meant by centrist is you're aligned with the Democratic Party, then this is all analytical, right? By definition, being aligned with the Democratic Party on your own view.
When you think of the word centrist,
you would have to show in any given case that the use of centrist is more specific, and that you're trying to call out something, and maybe that is actually what Taylor is doing when she's using centrist. Stop! Wait! You can't be complaining about interruptions when you're interrupting everyone all over the place. All right. So in any given context, I think it's on you to just to decipher what the intent is behind using the centrist label. But the Democratic Party is a center-left party.
She was using the word centrist because the people that she was trying to appeal to with that article, and I think it's obvious who she was trying to appeal to, use that word in a disparaging way, similarly to how they use the word liberal in a disparaging way. You know that Taylor uses.
Would you guys not describe liberal? Do you guys not describe liberal? Do you not describe yourselves?
Liberal is appropriate. That's an appropriate label.
Okay,
so liberals are center left, correct?
So let's call them liberals, and that will make you happy.
You got progressive liberals too, right? I mean, I like when I look at Brian Tyler Cohen's his overall priorities and his liberal.
Is he liberal?
I would call him a progressive liberal. Very confidently.
A
liberal, progressive liberal.
Okay, we will use the word liberal, and that will make you happy.
Well, I wish you would have used that in the article instead of saying centrist, because you know that you were using that as a pejorative.
Honestly, you have to call up some copy editor and say that to them. But if she had wanted a correction, she could have gotten a correction. But my point is,
besides the point, though.
It is not beside the point. She could have actually, if that was such a radical mischaracterization of her views, she could have reached out and gotten a correction. I would argue it's not a radical mischaracterization of her views.
Is it a false statement? right? Is it a false statement to call her centrist? I think that's the question. Is it an accurate, Hutch? Is it an inaccurate statement in the article?
Yes, I think it is. Yes.
To call Olivia Juliana centrist.
It doesn't matter whether or not it's accurate. What matters is it is clear that calling
but why can't accuracy absolutely like what is so hard about doing?
Please listen to me real quick, because you keep doing this. It's not about the accuracy whether or not this person is a centrist. If everyone in a certain ideological camp calls these people centrist, it is clear that this is coming from a specific ideological perspective and not just this is objective reporting about
I just
whether
don't think that the Wired articles,
is it relevant?
I don't think the Wired editors are like out to get someone. We're literally just
What are
trying
you
to
out to
describe
get?
now, taken. I will use the word liberal. I will use the word liberal, and when I write about these people again, I will use the word liberal. I can promise you that.
Okay.
So that
Well, I think you were establishing.
I'd like to respond to Soy Pill.
Yeah.
It's the potted plant's turn to talk. All right. So real quick on your on your point, Soy Pill, you say, well, in certain circles, this term can mean something else. I'm totally open to us having that discussion, but I think it's relevant to discuss whether the article is accurate first. That's a relevant thing to consider first.
And then we can say, okay, some people might accurately describe her as a centrist, depending on your ideological point of view, and we can use this to frame what kind of ideology.
To the extent that it's accurate, to the extent that it's accurate, it's trivial to observe that most content creators are centrist, because if all you mean by centrist is democratic aligned, then of course is going to be
and then you can use that to say, well, who is calling all pro-Democrats centrist, and what kind of ideology
I think
is that?
most Democrats are liberals. Are they not? Are they not liberal? Is the Democrat not the liberal party, guys?
Liberal. We're not talking about the term liberal.
But you said, but we're talking. Okay, centrist.
You use that term. Use that term. It wasn't your editor in your tweet. You use
sure.
That term.
I use the term centrist all the time. I use the term centrist all the time.
In
but
a
I'm saying
pejorative way. Anyone can search your Twitter feed and see when you use the word
You could also say I use the term and you could search my Twitter feed for the term leftist. See what I have to say about the term leftist on my Twitter feed. And see if I'm being really nice about it.
I will after this. I will. I'm
please go do it right away. You'll see why.
I think you use that language for a particular reason, Taylor.
No, I use language. I am criticizing different political factions constantly, and you'll see. Please search the word leftist and see what I have to say about the leftists. Please search this word.
Okay, you're establishing a cast of heroes and villains. That's what you're doing. Oh my God.
Okay. Literally, I'm sorry. I know you think that I have this, this is I feel it does remind me of the Tim Pool universe in a sense, because I have to say, it's this niche obsession with you're secretly our enemy and you're secretly our enemy.
I don't think you're secret about it. I don't think you're secret about it.
You say you hate Democrats.
I think you have open, you have open sort of
Democrats
hostility towards.
Crazy, but so do the Republicans.
I don't know. I think you've displayed in the past open hostility towards people that you consider to be the establishment or centrist or pro-Israel. But then when I press you on what these terms mean, you don't really have great answers.
Leftists, and look at what I have to say about the right, and look at what I have to say about literally look at all my political I know that you don't want to engage with other stuff, and I know you feel that you're I've been very critical about your ideology, but if you think that's because
I'm not offended by that. I don't care about. I'm just talking about your.
But you clearly think that because I'm critical of your ideology, that then I sort of ascribe to this other ideology that you really don't like.
I don't know if this is about ideology. To be honest with you, I have no idea. I really no, but article. I don't know what motivates you. But I do know that in the context of this article, you were establishing a cast of villains, and in this case, you had these pro-Israel centrist.
It doesn't say anything about Israel in our article. They're just pro. They are.
You added that commentary after the fact, and then other creators used your commentary to push a narrative about them being paid to cover for genocide.
Well, the Democratic Party, I would argue, has run cover for a genocide. Isn't that kind of why they lost part of it?
That's a separate thing. They're smearing the entire operation as being about covering for genocide. This includes people like Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman and Olivia Juliana. Well, they were, Hassan himself has made this claim.
Hassan I'm just curious was not even remotely part of this program.
But you mentioned him. You mentioned him in this article. You mentioned him in the old article. You mentioned him in this tweet.
The fucking Joe Rogan of the left or whatever.
No, but you're presenting the virtuous alternative to the corrupt Democratic shills. That's what you're doing in this whole thing.
I don't think Hassan is taking dark money.
But you're not. Are you rejecting that's what you're doing? That is what you're doing, right? You're saying you have these radical leftists, and they're pure and they're not corrupt, and then you have the corrupt pro-DNC, pro-Israel shills, right?
Please search my Twitter feed and see what I've said about the leftists. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
I did search it, Taylor, and you have been shitting on him quite a bit.
I
too, so.
constantly criticize people all over the political ideology. I very intentionally don't identify with one political faction over the other or whatever. And again, I know that that pisses everybody off in that political faction. But what I'm saying is that if you think that this is some bad faith like article that's meant to like valorize the left and like criticize that, that's just not what the article says. And I understand that my commentary
the article
on
did
it
say that they're not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus.
Yes,
How do you
that's
explain
true.
that?
That's
No, it's not though. It's not. We know that's not true.
Wait, sorry. They aren't allowed.
Why?
Sorry.
Why is it untrue? Wait.
Why do you think?
It's described in the
Steelman. Why do you think I'm saying that piece?
So I understand. Listen, I have my issue. I want to bring up my issues with the with.
Why do you think I'm saying that?
Wait. Hang on. I will definitely address that. I will definitely address that.
Recording says.
I will definitely address that.
Right, guys.
Hutch. I will definitely address it. So I want to be clear. I have my own problems with the article. It has to do actually with contractual language in the title. But I mean, at this point, it's been done to death.
I didn't write the title. I didn't write the title.
Sure.
Don't
Was
come
the
for me.
title wrong?
The contractual, the article. Are you asking me or asking Taylor?
I'm asking Taylor. Is the subheading wrong then?
But you can ask her.
Actually,
That's so important. That's so important. The subheading
It's not
says
factually wrong.
Well, you just said you didn't write it. So
Yeah,
I mean,
journalists don't write their titles.
But you have influence on the byline on the subheading, right? You can't request. Did you request
don't
to
write that
change
stuff.
the subheading? Wait, hang on.
No, it's factually
Journalists-
correct. Why would I do that?
Hang on. Journalists can't request that a subheading is changed?
I would never do that unless it was factually wrong. It's not factually wrong.
This is absolutely factually wrong, though. I mean, like in your subheading, you say that online influencers were paid up to $8,000 a month to push the party line.
Yeah.
There
But
were
that's
not-
how
there were no
that's how the
deliverables.
decks. Sorry, the decks in the marketing decks describe
Who cares
course.
about the marketing decks? We're
Well,
talking about a realistic like claim.
Right, we're talking about
you're
the-
saying that they
we're
were getting
talking-
paid $8,000 to push the party line, and there's no
The
deliverables.
whole point of the program was to fix the Democratic Party's messaging problem. That's the whole point of the program.
But you're saying paid X to do Y. That's a consideration for some sort of thing that in the other end of it. And I did have a criticism about that, but I wanted to address what was just said about the characterization regarding the disclosure. The article states that the language of the contract forbids disclosure, and I don't have any reason to believe that's untrue.
Yeah, there were at what particular quote are you pointing to here? Do you have the quote in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's
According to
characterizing
copies of the contract viewed by
Yes.
Wired that creators signed. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund, but that's not true.
Are
Yes,
you
it
disputing
is.
the accuracy of that?
Yes, it
Why
is.
is it? Why do you think it's untrue?
Because there's two different things going on here. There's the qualifier, like according to the contract, but then she's making a claim. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship
Under the contract.
with Chorus.
Yes,
No,
under
no,
the
Or
contract.
the contract.
Under the contract. That's all
Well,
under the
no,
contract.
but I think the qualifier is
That's
a different
very
thing,
clearly
though.
no. That's very clearly what it's talking about is
According
what's allowed under the contract. Do you have any basis to believe that's
Yeah,
untrue?
but why wouldn't you verify that was being enforced?
Wait,
We did. That's why they
But
came to
that's-
talk to us. That's why we have the article.
But Taylor,
So they're probably in breach. Hutch. The answer is they're probably in breach. The answer is they're probably in breach of
I
the
don't know
contract.
what is in their contract versus what they enforce.
But no, but the question, Hutch,
you're
the
aware,
question
please
stands.
go,
Do you have a
please
basis,
go, please
Hutch?
go.
The question stands.
Please
Do you have
go.
a basis to believe that that's untrue? Yes or no?
The framing of this, I find.
Do you
to
have a
be
basis to
incredibly
believe the statement is
dishonest.
untrue?
The framing is dishonest. Do you even disagree with me?
Is the statement true or not? No,
Hold
I
on,
think
why
the
are
other
you
part of the
going down
contractual.
your line of questioning? I know you had
I do, but it's kind of like in poor taste, kind of like lame to just have a pile on. And I have a different problem with the contractual language having to do with funnel through, and that's been done to death. And I can't even get my point heard on that. But I just want to ask you, Hutch, do you have a basis to believe that statement in the article is true? Yes or no?
No, not as it's framed. No.
You think that they were allowed to
So you either have a basis, to believe it's false, or you don't.
No. Hang on. You're not saying you're doing the slippery thing, Taylor. There's two different things going on here, right? So were they allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund? The 1630 fund, that is the separate fiscal sponsor. I understand that's like a separate
No,
obviously
they were
related
accepting
thing.
checks from the 1630 fund.
Right. So that's where they were the fiscal sponsor. So they did a lot of administrative
funder,
stuff.
but yeah.
They got
And
You have a
donors.
basis to believe that language in the article is untrue.
No. So that's
No,
one.
Do
thing
you
that
have
we
a basis to
know
believe that it's
will
untrue or not?
Doesn't, because
trying to
it's
answer your
true.
question. So we do know that in the contract that they were not allowed to disclose that they had like a relationship with 1630 or
so it's so the answer is it's a true statement in the article.
Peace Scout. This sentence right here. Tell me if you think this is true. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus.
The paid yeah, exactly.
No, not the paid relationship. No,
yes, their relationship was the relationship was
say that you
the relation. It literally says the relation. Did you or functionally that they were paid at all? Did you read? Can you read that sentence again?
I can read it right now. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired that creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund, or functionally that they're being paid at all. There's like three different.
The object there is relationship.
Exactly. Pisco.
The first one is Chorus, right? So like you're saying that they are not allowed to disclose the relationship with Chorus.
But the relationship is the object. With is the indirect object, or it's describing what's the thing that can't be disclosed.
No, Pisco right? Says the relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund. That's what it says.
Yeah, those relationships. There? Is that a reasonable reading of it?
But we know, and I'm curious if when you were doing your reporting, Taylor, like, were you aware that creators had been open that they were a part of Chorus before you wrote the article?
You can see that we actually link to Ken Bensinger's New York Times article, I believe, or reference it in the piece. I literally talked about that multiple times. It's Chorus, the Chorus itself, like the sort of broader entity that Brian Tyler Cohen started, was the subject of a New York Times article that was very public. So obviously I know that Chorus was public because I've also written about Chorus before. So
then I don't know how to make sense of the sentence. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or
their relationship with Chorus. Exactly. They couldn't disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund, or functionally that they were paid at all.
They did though. Many had discussed their relationship.
That's not what but the article describing what the contract allows.
Guys, guys, let me step in here. We've got 10 minutes left, and I got to say two things. And Guy's been incredibly quiet, and I think we can pivot this last thing into something that Guy will really want to talk about. So first thing is, Taylor, I don't think Hutch is like a white nationalist, because I think you would take grievance with me saying Joe Biden is a progressive, right? Because even if I could describe every most progressive thing that Joe Biden did, it's very clear that where these people align.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something? I know you guys aren't going to believe me on this. There are ways, like I talk to people in the Biden world that do argue that Biden was a very progressive president. Biden was a very progressive president in a lot of ways. I actually do think that could be fair to describe him in that way in certain context. Like if I was reading an article and it described him that way in the context of some of the policies that he pushed that were progressive, I would not take issue with that. And I know, like I said before,
but Taylor, I mean, in your video, like someone should do it. Like Joe Biden's like the great Satan for like his COVID policies, right? Like you really just like, but he's
like, I would not call him Satan, but I would say that he adopted far-right policies,
genocidal policies on disabled people,
on certain, and I would say Israel and
genocidal.
Well, on Israel and some other things. Sure.
Okay, wait, hold on. I was trying not to fight anymore because I know you've.
No, sure. I don't fuck with Joe Biden at all. I think he's I did not like him as president. Do I think he's better than Trump? Yes. Well, but listen, no. But if I was writing an article, for instance. And we're not talking about my YouTube videos or Twitter if I want to pop off and say whatever I want about Joe Biden. But if I'm writing an article and I'm seeking to be factually accurate, and I call someone a liberal or a centrist or progressive, whatever, and that goes through all these other editors, by the way, often who add, sort of their own whatever. We're trying our best to get things accurate. I'm not going to put like genocidal Joe Biden or whatever in an article that is like a fact-checked investigative article. I wouldn't. I would be like Joe Biden, who has executed XYZ policies or whatever. And with me characterizing Olivia Giuliana as a centrist who spoke at the DNC, Hutch, I know you think that that's supposed to be some like neg on her or something. I should have used the term liberal who spoke at the DNC, and maybe that would have triggered you less. But it's not. And I'm not saying that I haven't been critical of centrists. What I'm saying is like, I think that's a very silly point to like take with this article, because I think it's not only is it completely irrelevant to the broader topic of the article, but it's like, I think that you're ascribing a lot of motivation to what is ultimately like a pretty meaningless descriptor that I don't even think is very.
I don't think it was meaningless. I think you were telling a larger narrative. I don't think it was primarily about disclosure. I think it was about anti-establishment, and then the corrupt like.
Well, they are pro-establishment. We're
going to go in circles, Guy.
Wow,
you've said this before, and Taylor, I think you might have a very strong opinion on this. there is so much dark money coming in from the right, like unfathomably. 1630 was the answer
Read
rate
my
to the
other
to the Koch
Wired
product.
article that came out on Friday.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. By the way, yeah, we'll plug this at the end. Your other
Hutch is going to
dark
take
money group.
issue with that. You're gonna be like the.
We'll have you back
fucking
on
super
another
PAC.
argument. But
We're not
Guy,
anti-AI. We just want to help the AI into. We're not pro-AI.
wait,
We're just backed by Palantir and OpenAI. We're not pro-AI.
Who's
I'm
this now?
sorry. Listen,
Wait.
I'm
let me finish. Guy, you've said we need to use dark money to fight dark money. All bets are off at this point. Why not fight fire with fire? What's your take on that, essentially? And then Taylor, I want you to respond to like Guy's kind of like overall broad point of fight fire with fire.
We're just getting our ass kicked over on the left with the flooding of dark money. We found out Clavicular is funded by Peter Thiel. I mean,
That's not true. Peter Thiel doesn't like
Okay.
Clavicular. I don't know where that came from. You know, he's funded by an Israeli billionaire right now.
Okay, let me ask you a question then, Taylor, because I've heard that you're a big fan
you.
of Hassan, and you said that you're critical of everybody, including left. So, what is one criticism of Hassan that you have? Just to dispel this notion that you're in the Hassan camp, because I've heard this a lot, and I'm just it doesn't sound like it. So I want to give you a chance to say what you've been critical of Hassan for.
I think one thing that Hassan could do better, and I'm sympathetic to, you know, I am on the left, and I actually think Hassan gets a lot of like bad faith attacks, so I'm mostly defending him. I think one thing he could do better is speak about issues on specific policies. I think he focuses a lot on foreign policy. I think he doesn't focus enough on tech policy, on other, you know, policy areas that I think he could do a lot of good in. And I think that he focuses a lot more on sort of these bigger issues that maybe get a lot more attention, and that's his job as a content creator. But I think he kind of ignores a lot of.
That's going to get clipped. Hassan's going to not be your friend anymore after you said that really awful, mean thing to him.
Well, everything I say, I will say to people's faces as well. And to your point, by the way, about the dark money stuff, just because Clavicular isn't currently, as far as we can tell, funded by dark money, that doesn't mean that I don't hear your point that Democrats should use that is a very legitimate argument to have, because Peter Thiel is funding a lot of people on the right.
And I have another question too, is like, what does disclosure look like? For example, I did an event with Unfuck America recently, and I told my channel, they paid for my flight. I paid for my hotel, my parking, my food, everything. They paid for my flight. But like I feel like the goalpost keeps moving on disclosure. So what does disclosure look like that is satisfactory to you? In your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, again, like I have strict, like I'm going to be a lot more sort of disclosure friendly because I'm a journalist. So I have to be more disclosure. If you're a political influencer, you know, I'm sympathetic to these political influencers that are like, well, it's my job to be like pro-Democrat, I'm a liberal. Some of them do identify as centrist or leftist or whatever, you know, whatever, progressives, whatever they want to identify as. Right-wing influencers as well, right? Whatever you identify across the political spectrum, there's a bunch of people that they exist to promote a specific ideology, and they're proud of it. And so a lot of them feel like they shouldn't disclose. What I would say is you should still disclose your affiliations. Just say, like, I'm getting funded by XYZ group. XYZ group paid me X, you know, especially if they're paying for specific content. Chorus was not paying for specific content. A lot of them don't pay for specific videos for that reason. Because they don't have to disclose as much, you know, it's sort of the norms are not there around disclosure. But I would say just try to be as open as you can with your audience and have some sort of, you know. Would
that be satisfactory for me to just go on stream once and say, hey, by the way, they paid for my flight?
Well, I think one thing that I've suggested to content creators is like have an ethics, like have a FAQ. Like a lot of these influencers have like FAQs about themselves on their websites or their link tree or whatever. And it'll just say like groups I'm working with, or like, hey, I take political money. Here's the organizations that have funded me. Or, hey, I mean, yeah, if you don't have to beat people over the head with it. If you go on a trip and you're making a video from that trip and they paid for your flight, yeah, I think it's completely fine to say like, hey, they paid for my flight. You know, I don't think you have to like say it over and over and over again, although that's great if you want to. But I just think like, I hear you, and I'm not saying that nobody on the left should be using dark money groups. The 1630 Fund does amazing work in a lot of areas. They funded a lot of reproductive justice, like health stuff. Like they do stuff that I ideologically support. So I generally am not going to criticize specific like programs that they do unless they're doing that in a sort of a sneaky way. But I think that the system is never going to work out for the left. Like, it's great to use it, you know, why I get your point and I take your point. But overwhelmingly, if we want to dismantle money and like, more transparency is always going to benefit.
I bring it
the
up
right.
because
Or sorry,
the big
less
guys
transparency.
the big boys like Hassan make a lot of money. They don't need to take any funding. They don't need any help. And
Sure.
smaller creators, it's, you know how it is. It's tough. And
Yeah.
to do this even part-time can be expensive, and, you know, it's rare to make money. And so I just think it's in my opinion, it seemed like you're being a little harsh on people who are just trying to get a little help. And they're not trying to hide anything. They're just looking for help, and it was was offered to them, you know.
Like I said, I have friends.
I think it discourages
that are
people
in
from
this-
taking that help.
And
in the
I don't
future,
want
you know?
to discourage that. I don't.
Yeah.
What I want is really for the people that run these programs to be honest about it, because I do think, like, listen, this stuff eventually comes out, or like there's inconsistencies. Chorus was paying some creators thousands of dollars, and then people with bigger audiences were getting significantly less money, and that wasn't always clearly disclosed either. So I just think, like, that's going to lead to animosity. If I didn't break this story, these people were going to go somewhere else, right? It was going to be public. So I think, in the interest of transparency, in the interest of just, like, not also giving the other giving critics fuel, why not just be open about it, you know? And say, like, I think, like, you know what's so crazy to me too, by the way? They knew about this story for a month. Brian Tyler Cohen knew about this story. And so did 1630 Fund. They could have, I've said this so many times before, they could have called up the Washington Post and said, we have an exciting new program to announce where we're funding creators. And we're going to be giving $8,000 a month, and it's really exciting. And we're going to give you, you know, whatever journalist writes about it, access to some of the content creators. And we're going to make it this exciting announcement. Not only would that have taken the wind out of, like, my story completely, I wouldn't have been able to run my story, but also it would have framed it in such a positive light. Why?
You mean the Bezos Washington Post? I don't think that libs have a great deal of affinity right now for a lot of these mainstream outlets.
Ken Bensinger wrote the original story on Chorus. Ken would have absolutely written a follow-up if Brian Tyler Cohen wanted to announce a program like this with a bunch of big influencer names. There's so many media outlets that would have. Or they could have just announced it online. They don't even need to go through media. But I'm just saying, like, instead, they intentionally chose to try to attack the journalist, remain secretive. It's so unproductive.
But do you think
what I will say is that
various reasons, or they were just, you know, learning experience?
I think it's funny because they're being paid to, like, shape narratives, and I think this whole experience shows that they're not very good at it. And the reason I point to Courier and some of these other ones that overtly pay progressive, liberal, whatever you want to call it, Democrat creators, like, because they do it in the open and there's no controversy around that. Like, there's no, like, you know, even somebody like Kat Tenbarge, who's an amazing journalist in her own right, but she's been doing stuff for Courier. There's no controversy. There's no controversy about Ryan Broderick doing stuff for Courier. Like, these people just do the content, and it's out there and it's open, and people generally support it. Fans want to see the content creators that they like supported.
Well, the frustration, I think, and why I think there's more controversy here, and I'll tell you why I was frustrated, is because of the reaction, which I think we all now agree was unfair. The ones that relate in that there's specific sort of ideological restrictions on what is being said, and some of the notions that it specifically relates to Israel-Palestine. I think that you know, that the article, there is something newsworthy to the actual article, which is the non-disclosure aspect. I think that this all should have been resolved by just disclosing what's going on, but understanding that we're all in a fucking emergency right now, and we're all trying to fight a fascist government, and we absolutely need to fund creators and programs like this. And so I was very frustrated.
Sorry to interrupt. We should also know, like, you know, with the Israel stuff, for instance, like, know the qualifications. Like, they never put out public call outs for, you know, to join Chorus. And I think that's such a mistake. Like, a lot of these other creator programs, especially on the left, I don't know about Unfuck America, but certainly there's a lot of other, like, smaller versions of this. And they'll put out a public call out like, hey, we're looking for creators. We want people under the age of 40 or people that appeal to women. We're looking for beauty and lifestyle creators that are in, you know, that lean progressive, whatever. They'll put out call outs for creators. And they say, this is what we're evaluating people on. These are the views. We don't care about this. We care about this. Or you're not held to specific, like, content, you know, but there's just no transparency in this program. And with that lack of transparency, you get speculation. And that's why I say to anybody that says, well, most of them are not pro-Israel, most of them are not whatever. Okay, then release the roster so that we can accurately, identify, release the qualifications that you're using to judge who gets into the program. Other people put this stuff up online.
But Taylor, if you make that claim, I feel like it's on you to substantiate it. When you make the claim that 90% are primarily pro-Israel, I think it's
of
on
the ones
you
that we
to demonstrate.
identified. Sure, the ones that we identified.
But as
And
we discovered tonight, your sort of like basis for categorizing people in these ways is, I would say, dubious.
Well, that's your opinion, but I guess we're going to, just disagree on that. But that was my characterization of my commentary on my article, which is just commentary on an article. So I'm sorry that we're going to disagree on that specific point of commentary on the article, but you can read the article and everything stands very clearly in the story.
Let's end on that note, Taylor, that we do agree to disagree.
Also, read my other reporting.
Yes,
read the article
Taylor,
that I published on Friday, Hutch.
Other than that, I have. I've linked your
with-
article in the description about this, the Palantir, and this. I read it. I think this is frankly kind of scary that you can just label anything an ad, and this is paid propaganda. You don't have to say where it's coming from or what the agenda is. So yeah, everyone, please go check out Taylor's new article. But anything else, Taylor, that you're shouting out? Any appearances? Any books? I mean, I didn't even know you'd written a book. But yeah.
Well, I think Pisco already knows what I'm going to say, which is we have to kill these identity verification laws and mass surveillance. We didn't talk about it. It's so frustrating that on a Lib and Learn podcast that we are witnessing the decimation of our rights, of our civil liberties under a fascist government. The Trump administration is rolling back free speech protections at a rate that we have never seen in our lifetimes. It should horrify people. And there's no discussion of that on this podcast, it seems like. And it's really frustrating, especially to have a tech journalist on here who does so much reporting, who dedicates my life to covering this stuff. And you guys want to litigate whether I called an influencer a centrist in an article I wrote a year and a half ago.
Taylor, I had you on. Pisco had you on. We talked about it.
I know, but I'm talking about this podcast. I want every single person that listens to this podcast to go right now to stoponlineidchecks.org and fight back against these censorship and surveillance laws. It's terrifying. We have laws right now, the GUARD Act in Congress that is ostensibly cracking down on AI. That's not cracking down on AI. It's just removing anonymity from the internet, and it's devastating. It's horrible.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Taylor. I'm going to let you go. We're going to do our little wrap up here, but last question: do you now acknowledge that Hutch is not Dan Saltman?
Okay, I do need to be able to tell the difference between the two, and I'm really sorry. But you guys say a lot of the same things.
Oh gosh! All right, thank you, Taylor.
But I will.
Pleasure. And
now that I have seen you, I will remember it in my memory.
Let me just say, I do appreciate. I respect the fact that you came in here and you agreed to that exchange, and I do respect that. I do. Again, I want to reiterate that I appreciate the fact that you are calling attention to like the issue of money in politics and disclosure. I think it does matter, and I think we need journalists that are covering these things. And so I'll try to be as graceful as I can at the end of this. But I respect you coming on, and
it's fine. We can agree to disagree. But thank you for shouting out. Everybody go to stoponlineidchecks.org, and I'll see you guys there.
Bye, Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay, bye guys. Bye.
All right. Well, that was an episode of Live and Learn. How do we all feel about that?
In the books. I mean, I think the centrist point is fucking stupid. That's just my view. I have issues with the contractual language of the through thing, but I didn't feel like those were aired. I just think like calling a centrist or not, that's like
it was just indicative of the slant, right? This is what Hush was trying to point this as like a narrative.
I think the title is the best.
Yeah, sure.
Focus on the title. Yeah, the title and then the tweet which you did, which was good.
Pisco, if you were to steel man, like what larger point do you think I was making?
No, I understand the point about like bias and stuff, but the factual accuracy point, that's what I thought was bizarre.
It wasn't about bias.
Well, sure it was.
No, it's not about bias. It's about she claimed that her article was about disclosure. And I think her article was about something more meta than that. I think she was painting a narrative or writing a narrative about the big bad establishment, the corrupt establishment, centrist, pro-Israel shills, and the virtuous like leftists that were suppressed and frozen out of this.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's circumstantial evidence to get to her state of mind in this nefarious intent, and that is exhibited by her using that terminology. But what I have an issue with is like disputing the factual accuracy of it. I mean, that's just like fucking stupid in my mind. I don't think that it's useful.
Do you disagree that that's what she was doing with that article?
I don't disagree that that's what she was doing with the article, in fact, and I don't disagree that the title says it all, and that's the framing. Yeah,
you understand that centrist is pejorative, and she was using it as a pejorative. And
but you were disputing the factual accuracy of that claim. You understand the difference? I understand the point about the framing. I agree with you on the framing.
No, but she said
the factual accuracy point I think is stupid.
She said she didn't insert her opinion. She clearly did a number of times throughout that article, and that was one of those times.
Absolutely,
using that label was an intentional choice based on her opinion.
Are you hearing me, Hutch? I'm not saying that she didn't have opinion, and the framing was absolutely biased in ways that you've called out. What I'm saying is disputing the factual accuracy of it. That's what I think is fucking dumb. Like Biden calls himself a centrist. You know, he says I'm a centrist Democrat.
She called herself a progressive, dude.
Okay,
she called herself a progressive. She was a executive like director at a progressive like think tank. You know, like you
were trying to dispute whether or not she was in fact centrist.
You sound like Tucker Carlson.
That was wild. The white nationalist.
You didn't say anything in Hutch's defense piece. What was that about?
But
no, I thought Hutch was your boy.
She understood the point that I was making. She avoided it like the plague, so much so that she was willing to call AOC and Bernie a centrist. I mean, give me a fucking break. Like, that was ridiculous.
No, she's but the thing is, I think it's more effective to underscore what she is in fact saying. If you underscore the fact that all you mean by centrist is Democrat aligned, well then trivially, right, that would make anybody who's aligned with Chorus a centrist.
That word, because then that would make AOC and Bernie a centrist. It's
okay, that I think that's more effective than trying to like suss out whether the in fact accuracy of centrism from some objective stance independent way. I think that is just like an exercise in futility, and it makes it. I think it makes a critique not land as much if you focus on the title. I think in the tweet or whatever, and also like just the structure of it. It wasn't my favorite. I felt bad for IRI, but yeah, no, I have issues with the piece, and I did at the time, and still do, frankly. And I don't think there is a satisfying answer on the methodology point that we both raised on the Israel stuff. Like, how are you deciphering whether or not these creators are pro-Israel or not? And it's their lack of comment on genocide, and it's the subset of a subset, and that should have been obvious. I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. But I think the focus on like the weak criticisms, and I think a weak criticism is the factual accuracy of the centrist point. The weak criticism, I think, is also whether the contract forbade the disclosure or not, when there doesn't any evidence that the contract does not forbid the disclosure, and they have lawyers who are looking at it, and so I trust that it probably does. That's what frustrates me, and that's why
Well, I mean, like, so again, it says like according to the contract, and then it starts with like they're forbidden from disclosing their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund. But if she was already aware that influencers had previously, discussed their relationship with Chorus, and so clearly
that means they're in breach, Hutch. That means they're in breach.
Or it's not being. Wait, hold on.
The thing is, that's your
difference between. There's a difference between the letter of a contract and whether or not it's actually being.
I understand that. Yes,
and it's a journalist's job to suss that out and to confirm that the letter of the contract is being enforced. And she didn't do that, and she could have.
But one thing is saying that she's not raising.
We could go so far on this. The point is that you agree with us that there is an ideological slant to the she is
100%. That was what. Do you guys forget me debating this? Do you forget me debating this issue and me having the stance I do? But the thing is, I think the structure of it is of the interrogation aspect of it. I didn't like it, and I thought some of the points that we were dwelling on were stupid. And I did feel the need to speak up when I felt that there were parts of the article that were just factually accurate and that were just like literally true. And that is a thing that drives me crazy, and I'm always going to speak up on that when I hear that. One last thing I'll say is, yeah, in general, I think we all agree on somewhat of the disclosure aspect. We all criticize these rightoids when they all like congregate and don't disclose all the shit that's going on. I think that point should be taken in good stride, and we should encourage people like Brian and David, who I respect, who I like, to do shit like this. And I think Chorus is based, and I think that they should be funding dark money groups to support Democrats all over the place.
Well, I'm still shocked at her scathing criticism of Hassan there. I don't think I've ever heard someone get taken down so hard.
I can't believe she said something so awful about him
there. He's gonna be pissed. Holy shit. And I think that said a lot in her answer there. But she got awfully defensive. I don't know what's the story there. I did not follow the Chorus thing as closely as you guys, obviously. That's why I stayed out of it. I didn't dare try to change the subject or interject. And you guys just seem like you're doing something and you're focused on it, which is fine. But boy, she was super defensive. And I don't know about you, but I'm proud to like talk about whatever I do. I'm not getting hurt. She seemed like genuinely pissed.
Did you disclose that I purchased that hat for you?
You gave it to me
with money that I use.
What do you mean with money?
Well, where do you think I got it? You think I manifest these hats? They just grow out of my head? No, I paid for that. You got a bribe from me.
Thank you for the sweaty hat off your head.
I wasn't sweating that day. I made sure I got a clean one. All right, guys, what's going on this week? What are we boosting, Hutch? What are you doing?
Just regular stream. Thanks you guys for tuning in. I didn't, I gave you guys a heads up that I did do like literally like fucking 12 hours of prep, and there were so many other things, but we kept getting stuck because I felt like she was being evasive, and I didn't want to like let a lot of that stuff go. But appreciate you guys giving me that time. So.
Someone in my chat said I just called her a hysterical woman. What?
Yeah. Do you think she was bossy, Ira?
No, I thought she was incredibly defensive. That's what I thought, which has nothing to do with her gender. So weird.
All right, Guy, what do you got going on this week?
Well, I got interviewed by Rolling Stone this morning.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Pretty cool. They claim that article's coming out, so we'll see what comes of that. But that's it.
Do you talk about the politics at all, or is it all just your
I did actually. Stuff? They asked me like it was about me and my connection with the band, and so we talked about what I do. So this might be the first connection to my live streaming and my politics with the role and all that.
What you're saying is Live and Learn got interviewed by Rolling Stone to like kind of right, like we're all famous to an extent, is what you're saying.
They might be watching tonight because she said she would check out my stream. So,
yeah. Pisco, what's up?
I'm interviewing a candidate for a Democratic race. I'm not going to announce it just now on Thursday in the morning, which will be fun. It's against an incumbent Democrat, and I'm giving her the space to talk about her case for why she should win the nomination there. Additionally, also working to do the TikTok debates, to get those back up and running right now, but we're doing morning streams this week, and so tune in if you'd like to do that.
And are you collabing with Guy? I saw him triple team people at UFA, so like he's definitely open to having a person next to him.
Listen, I think IRI is like a really good person to have as like a wingman in those debates, or even taking the lead at times. I think he's very like level-headed, and he's really, I think, rhetorically effective in all those contexts. And so I'm always very proud to see IRI like wherever he goes, just stunting and sounding like very reasonable, whatever he gets. Even I think in this interaction with Taylor, I appreciated the way you came at it, which was open-ended. Like, how would you disclose? What standard would you set? And I think that keeping it open like that is very a contrast to me, which is like usually more restrictive. And so I'd like to see it. And so, kudos to IRI.
I appreciate it. Also, I'm in a CNN thumbnail, which is cool. For the
nice.
Unfuck America stuff. Yeah.
That's nice.
Thank you though, Pisco. I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah.
I hope you do your TikTok thing because you bring a different perspective. Everybody's got their own flavor, so the more the merrier, bro.
Pisco, is it true that the picture that IRI and I took that I sent to you, you described us as your Jews?
I certainly did not. I certainly did not. No, but I did see someone. I've seen a nickname for you, Soy Pill. Can I say it?
Do I get the Jewish? I don't know. Can you?
Do I get the G word pass?
The G word.
The goy pill. I've heard that.
Goy isn't a slur, so you can say it, I think.
All right. Well, I don't know. Listen, I'm not read into everything. All right, bro.
You're scaring me with these questions, Pisco.
I do want to. I do want to get at some point some conservative voices on Live and Learn at some point, and that's why I'm angling for like Ashley Sinclair. I think that would be like a great just to pick her brain on like these different internal group chats and stuff.
We'll ask her.
Yeah, after that conversation, she will be overjoyed to hear from us. But listen, we got to leverage what we can.
Not burned yet, all right? She just texted me. I haven't read them, but it's probably like I had such a great time. Hutch is amazing, but I'll go look at those in a second. Plugs on my end. My new video's out and it got demonetized, but I got it back up and it's doing really well. So thank you everyone who watched, and go watch if you haven't. And I think I'm gonna do, because I'm almost at 200K, like another Team stream with the community on Thursday or Friday. So if you guys want to do that, check that out. Oh, and Ukrainian Anna wants to defend ethnostates to me because apparently I'm too American. So that's
should we have her on at some point? That would be fun.
We should. That's a good idea. It's a little harder to schedule because of the whole Ukraine and random Shahid attacks. But we should absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone. It's good to see you guys. I'll see you next week.
Bye, folks.